WHB.
All right, thank you. And why does the paper have to go over, ladies, and not under? Over's better. Guys don't care, right? I care. Over. Oh, God.
Over is the correct answer.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours we've got you. We will talk with Cynthia Freeland coming up at 11 o'clock on this Wednesday. NFL Network analytics expert. We'll talk with her about the Chiefs and Bengals game, get her thoughts on what we're seeing from this Chiefs offense. They were able to run the ball really well, yet averaging almost 6 yards per carry in the first half with Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes. They scored 10 points. Is there anything to take away from that? Anything to glean from that, besides the 2 turnovers that took place in that first half with the interception and the fumble? Regardless, we're going to do some of those things. Patrick Mahomes being gifted interceptions by the officials. We'll talk with Cynthia about that. And then one of the things I want to ask her about is, we talk a lot about fourth down decisions. We talk tons with Cynthia about some of the analytics and what the right and wrong move was. And certainly I want to get her thoughts on the Eagles on Monday night in throwing the ball on third down and the conversation that we had yesterday about that. But also I kind of wonder, when we look at the Chiefs and Andy Reid and the decision on 4th and 1 from the 3-yard line to go for it, and then 4th and goal from the 1-yard line to kick the field goal, at what point is there a diminishing returns of how many times you go for it on 4th down on one single drive? Because if it's like, you got a 60% chance of getting this first down on 4th down, so what's the percentage chance of getting 2 4th downs on the same drive? What's the percentage chance if you have to go for it 3 times? And not like the Eagles when it was the tush push.
No, it's like flipping a coin. It could be heads 10 times in a row. The
point.
11th time is still 50-50.
That's a great point. It's a good call. Good call. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's exactly what she says, that it's all independent of itself, that if you go for it on 4th and 1 from the 50-yard line and you pick it up, the next time you go for it on 4th and 1, it's the exact same percentage it would have been before. It's not that you just start to add it on or start to, create the overall math problem of multiple things happening, like Ken Palm's algorithm of, well, I've got this team individually. KU is going to win each and every game in the Big 12 Conference, but at the end of the season, I've got them 15-3. Why? Well, because it's an overall season percentage of them winning all those games versus a one-off independent algorithm KUV Utah, Arizona. Coming up. So we'll talk with Cynthia Freeland about that, what she has seen from Atlanta. Should they go no huddle? Is there a difference that she's seeing in this Falcons team when they have the 2 drives when they went hurry-up offense against Pittsburgh? 2 of their 3 touchdowns this year have come in hurry-up offense. We talked to Tysher about that yesterday before the end of the first half against Pittsburgh. They went down the field, scored a touchdown, 2-minute drill. And then, obviously, on Monday night to end the game, went right down the field on a 2-minute drill. 2 of their 3 touchdowns have come in no-huddle, hurry-up offense. Maybe you say prevent defense against the Eagles, but there's no way Pittsburgh was playing prevent defense to end the half. So we'll talk with her about that, get her thoughts on this game. Braden Gall coming up at 12:30. We'll get some college football talk with Braden. Mizzou in action against Vandy. K-State taking on BYU, and KU along with K-State, getting their Big 12 conference season underway. KU going on the road. They are the underdogs this week. 11 o'clock in the morning on ESPN2, 2.5-point dogs. KU is in that line has not changed. While K-State going to BYU, that line opened up on Monday, or at least when I first started keeping track of this for the formats for the show. On Monday, it was K-State by 7.5. Now it's down to 6.5. And I think K-State's going to roll in this game. Like I know it's 9:30 at night, so maybe they might be a little bit sleepier, but what they did to Arizona, and whether BYU's undefeated or not, I have no idea what to think of SMU, because SMU hasn't played anybody, and BYU has beat The other two teams that aren't very good,
Southern Illinois and Wyoming.
Southern Illinois FCS and Wyoming is 0-3, and they have gotten destroyed this year. Wyoming got beat by 41 points to Arizona State, a team that we think will win 3 or 4 games in conference this year. They got beat by 41 to Arizona State, and BYU beat Wyoming. I don't know what to make of this line because it really feels like it's a principal bet on BYU plus the points because it feels like Vegas is going, no, lay the points. K-State just destroyed Arizona. Arizona's a better team than BYU. They just punked Arizona. And that was a Friday night. They got an extra day rest. They got to sit back and hang out while BYU was playing the next day. But elevation, you're going on the road. Kickoff's damn near 10 o'clock at night.
I mean, Elevation's a great song by U2, but it ain't going to matter when K-State's waxing BYU.
I totally agree with that. We'll get Braden Gall's thoughts on why this line is going towards BYU right now. And Mizzou, the line has gone up a point towards Mizzou, 20.5 now up to 21, taking on Vandy. But we'll talk to Braden Gall about that, and I want to get a little deeper dive into KU because I did a deeper dive last night into KU and their possessions, listening to Lance Leipold, which, by the way, tonight, 6 o'clock, last night, Lance Leipold with Hawk Talk. Listen to that tonight. Lance.
Lance is tonight.
Hawk Talk
last
is
night,
tonight.
yeah.
Yes, you guys with Pete Sweeney was last night. So tonight, Lance Leipold, Hawk Talk, and he talked after the game, or at least this week in the press conference a couple days ago, defending Grimes, putting the blame on himself, saying the offensive line has been fine, but nobody's talking about the new offensive line coach. Why not? Because it's been okay. We're just talking about the offensive coordinator because it hasn't been great. The interceptions, the fact that now they may switch. Grimes may go up to the booth instead of being like you're searching at that point. Like that is. We'll talk to Braden Gall about that. That is a little bit of a concern if your offensive coordinator and your passing game coordinator, co-offensive coordinators are saying, should we switch? Should you come back down? Because what's his name? Quarterbacks coach, co-OC.
Zabrowski.
Thank you. He's got the relationship with Jalen Daniels, works with him every day. So they think maybe his relationship on the sideline with Jalen Daniels will help a little bit more while Grimes up in the booth can see, the field a little bit more and have a controlled environment, not as much chaos while you're calling plays. Maybe that'll make a difference. I think
Don't throw 6 interceptions in 3 games.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, when you start doing that, are you searching for answers? And I don't panic button is not the right term. I don't think they're hitting the panic button. They're trying to figure out what the best way would be to move forward, to relay the information and to make sure Jalen Daniels is in the right headspace between the ears. And maybe that is with a different coach on the sideline who he spends every day at practice with.
I do think if you lose to West Virginia, you do press the panic button. I don't know how you don't at 1-3 at that point. Again, I'm not saying blow everything up, but there has to be a serious conversation about a QB change. And I know you and I think even Dylan, we all picked West Virginia to win this game heading into the season. West Virginia has not played great. They're 1-2, lost to Penn State. We figured that.
Yeah,
losing at Pittsburgh, not great.
Not ideal.
Yeah, this is a huge game for the Jayhawks.
Yeah. I picked KU to win at West Virginia because I'm smart. But I also picked them to win the last 2 weeks too, so because I'm also smart. But what Lance Leipold had talked about, and he had just said it anecdotally, so I did a deeper dive, and it absolutely backs up what he was saying. And he'll probably get into a little bit more if he wants to use my numbers. I can pass them along. I'm pretty sure his people have the same ones or even more information. But he talked about what they did when they don't turn it over. And, of course, that's like, hey, what about all the days I didn't break the law? Yeah. Why are you putting me in jail for this one day that I had this really bad day and broke the law a lot? All those other days that I didn't break the law. Come on. But KU, they have had 12 drives without turning the ball over. They have scored 37 points on those drives. 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals, and they've only punted 5 times in those drives without a turnover. 6 drives with a turnover. Shocker, they got no points out of that. Just joking. But the opposing team in those 6 drives scored on 4 of those when they got the ball off turnover for 20 points. KU's punted 5 times, and the other team has 2 scoring drives for 10 points. So you've got 1 extra drive off turnovers, but double the points, as opposed to the 5 punts that KU has that have resulted in 3 different 3-and-outs. I'm just talking about the last 2 weeks, by the way.
Sure.
This is not Lindenwood. This is the last 2 weeks of 2 losses. They have punted 5 times, and the defense has forced 3 3-and-outs when they've punted. It is what Lance Leipold, like, it seems simplistic to say, well, if you don't turn the ball over. But you're talking about when they have the ball, 37 divided by 12, you're talking about 3+ points per drive. But when you turn the ball over, you're giving up 20 points in 6 drives. Like, that is a massive swing in 2 really close games in which you lost.
You know, it's interesting about the turnovers that Kansas has had so far, and I think you can go back all the way to week 1 against Lindenwood when Jalen Daniels and Luke Grimm weren't on the same page and the guy just jumped the route. Of all 6 interceptions that he's had, I think every single one of them was just a bad decision. It was an easy pick for the cornerback. I think that's where you'd have a little bit more of an issue if you looked at 4 of those interceptions. You said, man, you know, he's underthrowing that. You know, it's a great play by the cornerback. There could be a little less zip on his ball now. But I think all 6 of these interceptions have just been purely awful decisions. And at certain points in the game where you're going, why not just pocket that? Why not just throw the ball away? You go to Illinois, it was the first drive of the game. It's 3rd and 8, and he's trying to force the issue because he doesn't want it to be a 3-and-out, or maybe it was the second set of downs there. But then against UNLV, he throws the pick at the end of the first half on 3rd and 10 because he doesn't want to punt the ball back instead of just saying, we're up by 11 points. Yep. Let me, run the ball here. Let me throw it away. We'll punt it. Our defense will have, be able to hold them for probably not have a 99-yard drive there, or maybe a 90-yard drive. And then his second one was in the second half because they were pressing and UNLV was coming back, and it was too early in the drive to force a ball like that. It felt like a predetermined decision, kind of in the same way Patrick Mahomes had that predetermined decision to throw it to Kelsey on his first pick. It was just, I'm going to one person here, and UNLV read that. So if you clean those things up, or maybe somebody's in his ear saying, it is better for us to go 3-and-out in that spot than having a complete switch of the fields here and giving a team life like that. And UNLV and Illinois, time and again in those 2 games, were given life because of bad decisions by Jalen Daniels.
Well, and you can look at the 3.3 points per drive the defense gives up when they turn the ball over, as opposed to the 0.5 points per drive the defense gives up when you punt it. That's pretty stark. I mean, you're talking about almost a field goal extra if you turn it over as opposed to just simply punting the ball away. And it's not ideal to punt the ball away every time, but again, you're talking about 12 drives in which they've only punted it 5 times when they haven't turned it over. And they have 4 touchdowns and 3 field goals out of those other drives. So certainly the defense didn't have to give up that touchdown late in the first half with no time left on the clock. You could have let UNLV be the fools that messed up that whole end-of-clock situation, but instead it's about KU. But we'll talk with Braden Gall about that, what K-State looked like. Mizzou gets the win against Boston College, and against a quarterback that's like the 4th highest-rated quarterback in the country in Castellanos for Boston College. Of course, 2 of his touchdowns on broken plays, being one particular player saying, I don't want to guard that guy running right by me. So we'll talk with him about Mizzou and Vandy, and also a couple of big games this weekend. One in the Big 12, one in the SEC, Utah and Oklahoma State. A huge one at 3 o'clock, 2:30 actually, and Tennessee, Oklahoma at 6 o'clock. 2 massive games, Utah heading to Oklahoma State. And if you're Kansas State, you're rooting for Oklahoma State because you don't play Utah this year, and you play Oklahoma State next week.
Sure.
So Oklahoma State wins that game against Utah. It helps you with the fact that you don't play Utah, so it gives them a loss. And you play Oklahoma State, so if you beat Oklahoma State, that wins even better because they knocked off Utah. So,
and Mizzou basically needs Oklahoma to win.
Yes, to beat Tennessee because they don't play Tennessee this year.
And because it's Tennessee. Yeah. Let's be real now.
Well, it's also Oklahoma, so I don't know.
It's really a lose-lose.
Can you root for a tie?
Yeah.
Can you root for both of them to lose? I don't know. Braden Gall coming up at 12:30. Can they avoid the sweep tonight? The Royals, I mean, the last 2 nights have just been frustrating baseball to watch because they've had opportunities, and the fact that they would be a half game out of the number 1 wild card spot because the Orioles keep losing, and they're still 2.5 games out of the number 1 wild card spot, but they have not taken advantage of the Orioles losing to be able to host some games. That's what's going to be sticking in my craw if they come close to getting that number 1 wild card and they don't get it, is, these couple of games where on Monday night they had some big hits to start off the game, but from the time the Royals went up 5-1 against the Tigers on Monday night, since then they went 2 of 17 with runners in scoring position. Since they went up 5-1. Since that not home run by Bobby Witt, was Michael Garcia's single in the next inning with a runner in scoring position that put him up 5-1. They started off 3-3. 3 of 3 with runners in scoring position in these 2 games. And they are 2 of 17 since.
So 5 of 20.
5 of 20, yep. Which is .250. It's not, not
terrible.
Awful. But when you start off 3 of 3 and you're going, all right, so yeah. There we go. They're batting 1,000 in these first 3 at bats with runners in scoring position. Okay, they're turning it back on. They had been struggling since the beginning of September because before these 2 games started, the Royals were batting .210 since September with runners in scoring position, a 600 OPS, and they went 3 for 3. Like, boom, there you go. Now they're returning home, getting it rolling again. But then the faucet dried up quickly.
13 base runners, 14 if you count the extra innings, 1 run. I mean, that's just incredible. That almost doesn't even seem possible. You had so many guys on in scoring position, less than 2 outs, by the way.
Yeah.
And just time after time after time, what you couldn't have.
Time.
Good song. It was so frustrating to watch that game last night. The bullpen of Detroit's very, very good, and you're getting to Casey Mize early, but you know they're going to pull him after, 4 innings, maybe 5. You're getting to him. Pitch count is up. Do something with
press and you watch and you will strike out.
Time after time.
Jack, your thoughts?
I think what we've seen in these, at least these first 2 games, is that the at-bats with the bases loaded or the bats with runners at scoring position, they've been too eager, in my opinion. I mean, Michael Massey last night, you're facing a new arm there. I understand that if you ambush somebody, you look very smart. If Michael Massey gaps one there and he clears the bases, you go, man, he was ready to hit in a spot like that.
His best pitch was that first pitch that he was going to hit. It's one of those things.
It's the Siebel, it's the argument of Saquon, and it's after the fact. After the fact, everyone's a genius, but it is right either way.
Yeah, but also Massey did tie the game up with the 2-out RBI with runners in scoring position with 1-1, so he did come through before. But go ahead, Jack.
So he's feeling probably pretty good in that moment of, I've already driven in a run. I think they're going to give me a fastball here because they got to get ahead. They don't pitch me the same way they do with Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. But at the same time, I think it appears worse because both starters for Detroit didn't go deep in the game. And they turned it over to their bullpen because their bullpen has been the best bullpen in baseball since the middle of August. They've got 5 or 6 guys they can turn to, and it's harder to drive in runs there. And I'm not trying to make too many excuses for the Royals. They've had some really terrible at-bats in big-time moments. And last night they had their chances, but I'd also argue Detroit had their chances. I think they were 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position. So they weren't perfect last night, but it was more so of it's a battle of the bullpens at that point.
Yeah.
And Detroit, simply put, has more arms to go to, and the Royals tried to squeeze an extra inning out of Lucas Erceg, and it cost them in the end.
Yeah, I think the Michael Massey double play is frustrating because of the previous 2 at-bats when Bobby and Salvi work the walks. So you're taking close pitches, you're laying off pitches, you're locked in. And, Bobby, they were pitching around him. I think this is one of the few games we've seen where the pitchers were like, yeah, we ain't messing with this guy.
This is the 5th inning, I think, for everyone to listen. I think not the final at bat that Massey flew out, which was a sinker down the middle.
No, the
this
5th
was
inning,
the
bases
5th
loaded,
inning, yes.
1 out.
Yeah.
Tommy Pham singled after Isbell grounded out. Pham singled. Bobby Witt walked on 5 pitches. Then Salvi, was up 2-1, fouled a pitch off, or was up 2-0, fouled a pitch off, was 2-1. And then took a couple of close pitches that were on the outside part of the plate, and they were balls, and he walked. You're like, oh, all right, here you go. Now, of course, they went to Shelby Miller, and I think the frustration is that inning developing and sitting 1-1, and the top of the lineup doing what they had to do, single, walk, and Massey's first pitch is just a weak grounder to second base, and it's a double play. That adds to the frustration is because of the previous two guys working the count, working walks, locked in, close pitches that they're spitting on, and Massey just,
situations
doesn't barrel
are
it up.
situational. I was saying Curtis's argument is like he was right in the sense of that moment. Mm-hmm. You do kind of need to take a pitch, just like last night. Like maybe Massey did have a single on a first pitch, but in that time frame, in that moment, you want to make that pitcher earn at least the first strike.
Yeah, but also I think the thought process could be, this guy's coming in the game with bases loaded. He ain't trying to fall behind 1-0 to me.
That's also a great point.
Yeah, I mean, this fastball, because
that's why I don't think anyone's wrong when they argue.
Because we've heard Rex Hudler say when, like, a guy goes up there to sort of, like, work the count and a fastball right down the middle, and we've heard Rex say a couple times, that may be the best pitch he's going to see all at bat. And
it's Kyle Isbell. It's been Kyle Isbell a lot in that situation.
Yeah. You just, you wish if he was going to get that pitch to, put the barrel on it.
Or get in the air.
Or wait for a fastball, because don't just sit and say, I'm going to swing first pitch. I'm going to swing at a fastball, not a slider.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So first pitch I'm swinging unless it's a slider. All right? Fastball, yes, nope. All right, it's not a fastball. I'm not swinging.
Because the one thing you can't do is, well, two things. You can't strike out and you can't have a double play. Mm-hmm. Double play is the worst of all outcomes, and that's exactly what it was. You have to at least bring in one run there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I honestly do get swinging first pitch, because if you think it's going to be a strike and you think you can lift one into right field for a sac fly, even if you know, hey, maybe I'm not lining one into the gap here, but maybe I can get at least one run in, have the Royals take the lead, right? Because it was a 1-1 game.
Yeah,
I get that. But that's what you can't do. You can't hit down on the ball and have just a weak grounder for a double play. That's worst case scenario.
You got a slider that's coming in towards your feet, and a right-hander, and, it's unfortunate. I would have, if he's going to swing first pitch, I would have liked for him to be looking fastball, and that's it. And then he threw me a slider. All right, now I'm in the at bat. Here we go.
And maybe he was looking fastball to an extent, and that's why he hit a weak grounder on top of the ball that rolled to second base.
Well, he should be smart.
Fastball, maybe that's going to left. I
think Massey's good enough to, if he's thinking fastball, to recognize slider when it's. I don't know. We're talking about major league players that are throwing.
It's an 88 mile an hour slider. I think he's got some get up to it.
Right.
You got to look at the hitter too, as what they've shown you all season long. Michael Massey's a guy that doesn't walk. Right. He's up there to swing the bat. He's kind of like Salvador Perez in that department of, I'm not going to go up there and take a first pitch strike, because also, as you guys just brought up, if he falls behind 0-1 and later on in that bat he strikes out on the pitch down, and the way you go, he wasn't even ready to hit. He wasn't aggressive at all in that spot. He was trying to be aggressive. And
Tommy Pham didn't even swing the bat the other day.
There you go.
When bases loaded and 1 out, and he watched 5 pitches go by and never swung the bat and struck out.
So it just feels like in that spot, not a bad decision, a bad swing, but also a well-executed pitch. I mean, that's a 98 sinker right on the bottom quarter. 88
slider.
88 slider. I thought it was a sinker, but yeah.
Well, it was sinking. So
it was not where you want to swing there, but he was clearly thinking maybe another pitch, and it didn't work out. But many other opportunities they failed to cash in. I mean, they had another bases-loaded opportunity.
Yep.
Tommy Pham popped out. Well, the good thing you look at tonight is you're probably not going to face the Tigers bullpen unless you light up Tarek Skubal, so not going to face all those arms for the rest of the game.
You don't have to worry about runners in scoring position tonight.
There you go.
Enough with the runners in scoring position talk since September 1st. You don't have to worry about that, okay? The Royals were batting .291 as of August 31st with runners in scoring position. Now, they haven't had enough at-bats to really affect that number, but since September 1st, they're batting .230 with a 600 OPS. With runners in scoring position.
It was 300 for how long? Remember, they were above 300. It was 301, 303.
It's just not coming through right now, and if that is now regression to the mean of how good they were all season, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to talk a little bit about Kareem Hunt signing with the Chiefs. Practice squad expected to eventually or soon be elevated. We'll find out, what we think about Kareem Hunt. And then we'll talk with Bill Brandmeier coming up later on this hour to tell you about a really cool event coming up very soon. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Future Cy Young. I was getting my Cy Young Award winners mixed up with the Royals and Tigers. Skubal will win the Cy Young this year. He's on the mound for the Tigers. Marsh will win it in his career one day. He's on the mound for the Royals tonight. He has pitched better as of late, and so we'll see if the Royals can find a way to win one. How crazy would it be if just overall baseball, if the Royals, with the third and fourth betting favorites to win Cy Young the last two nights, lose, and then the heavy minus 5,000 favorite to win Cy Young goes for the Tigers tonight, and the Royals win? That would be total baseball. That's just like, there you go. It's baseball.
Like last night. I mean, Casey Mize and Alec Marsh are fairly similar in production. not where they were drafted, but in production, right? And then Skubal and Reagans are kind of like that. And I feel like if the Tigers last night have to be feeling like, wow, we stole one. Even with Reagans dealing, they stole one. Well, maybe Skubal goes 8 innings and gives up one. But the bullpen might be a little taxed for Detroit. And the Royals walk it off, baby. Book it.
Tag him for 4 in the first.
With
an all-righty lineup.
That would be fantastic.
So Royals.
But that is how it works, right? Is
Yes.
what everyone thinks is going to happen, or everyone thinks is doomsday, is actually going to be our best hitting performance.
Skubal hasn't pitched well at all against the Royals this year either, both in Kansas City and in Detroit.
Has anyone looked at the last 10 only in the American League as far as standings go? There's only 3 teams that have a 7-3 record over the last 10. And the Tigers are one.
Tigers are one of them.
You want to know something wild?
What's wild?
Tariq Skubal, what is his record in his 14 career appearances against the Royals?
I don't think it's very good at all.
Take a guess.
ERA-wise?
Go ERA and go wins-loss.
Okay, so 14 outings, I'll say it's not a decision in every single one. I'll go 4-7 with a 5.34 ERA.
Sterling, move so I can see your laptop.
I'm going to go 4-5 with a 4.7.
Dylan?
I'm going to go 3-4 with a 5.6.
He is 2-9 with a ERA of 5.05 in 14 appearances versus the Royals. And in his last 2, you're right, Jack. He got absolutely shelled.
He didn't pitch well at all. Here's also a fun fact, because we know before anybody freaks out about the lineup, it's going to be an all-righty lineup again. That's what they did in the first 2 outings against Skubal. And here's a fun thing that maybe nobody knows about. You're going to probably expect this guy tonight. Garrett Hampson hitting .444 off Skubal in his career.
There you go. Crushes.
And I believe Dairon Blanco's hitting .364
there you go.
in his career. So those guys are probably going to be in the lineup.
Yep, and there's probably a very, very, very big sample size for those 2 guys hitting that way against Skubal, too, so where you would know it definitely continue to translate.
Is he
against
3
them.
for 7? Garrett Hampson, is he 3 for 7? That's 444, right?
Blanco has 11 at-bats. Not bad.
Not bad.
Hampson's got 9 at-bats. Salvi's also hitting .370 off Skubal and 27 at-bats. Bobby Witt Jr., 136 and 22 at-bats.
Okay, we'll see.
Oh, so you're saying
Maybe
sit him and put
sit him.
and Garrett Hampson needs to start at shortstop tonight. Okay,
absolutely.
That's what you're saying, Jack?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can hold me to it.
Well, I mean, by the way, of the 5 hits the Royals had with runners in scoring position the last 2 nights, Bobby had 2 of them. So he's got 2 of the 5. So without Bobby Witt up there, and I think he had 4 at-bats, so he's 2 of 4. So they would be 3 of 16 without Bobby Witt over the last 2 days with runners in scoring position. Also, that whole Grand Slam thingy. That was nice. The Chiefs signed Kareem Hunt to the practice squad. He begins on the practice squad with the expectation from Jordan Schultz saying the expectation he'll be elevated soon. What do we expect from Kareem Hunt? Because I'm not expecting much, but he knows a variation of the offense. He knows the offense from what it was in the verbiage and the plays and the installs from 2017 and 18. Whatever they've done since then and changed some things up and elevated and added on layers and wrinkles. He doesn't know those things. But he also was not the same guy he was even 2 years ago. He's gone backwards, and even some of his runs have gone backwards with Cleveland. He was able to score, got the 9 touchdowns last year. What do we think Kareem Hunt will bring to the table? I don't think much.
Yeah, I don't think a lot. I mean, again, I think people who are posting all these Kareem Hunt Chiefs highlights. That was when he was 23 years old.
Yeah, I don't need Kareem
He was
Hunt
22
highlights.
and 23. He is now 29. Now, do I think it's a bad move? No, I think it actually makes him sense as long as the Chiefs trust him and whatever is behind him is behind him. I do think there's some value for at least having that depth, that some familiarity with him. I do think he makes more sense than McKinnon as far as he can be a guy on first and second down, while Samaje is your third down guy specifically. I think Carson Steele is going to get the lion's share of the carries on first and second this week. I think Keontae Ingram might be the guy called up this week. But I think going forward, I do think you might see Kareem Hunt get 5, 6, 7 touches a game. And again, he'll have an opportunity. Maybe he runs angry and that 4.9 yards a carry comes out, but from 4.9 to 3.8 to 3.0 yards a carry in the past 3 seasons, not a great trend.
Well, you also take into account that this has happened in some capacity to the Chiefs before. You have to go back 9 years ago when Jamal Charles got hurt against Chicago, and Andy Reid made it work with Charkandrick West and Spencer Ware. So this running back room, though not loaded, and there are more prominent names like a Samaje Perine and a Kareem Hunt, but if there is any coach, if there is any offense to scheme it up for 2, 3 different running backs, it feels like this is the place to do it. So am I expecting Kareem Hunt to come in and win Comeback Player of the Year? No. But I do think, as Sterling said, he can be that guy 6 to 7 times a game. Instead of giving the ball to Carson Steele, you could give the ball to Kareem Hunt and maybe not overexpose Carson Steele so early as a number 1 running back when we can be honest that he's an undrafted free agent rookie and he shouldn't be thrown into the fire so early on.
The Chiefs have done it before with some older guys, LaShawn McCoy, Le'Veon Bell. McCoy worked out much better than Le'Veon Bell did. And those guys were more of the featured back anyway, and that's not what Kareem Hunt's going to be. I'll be curious to see how the reps get split this weekend if the Chiefs really go into this game and say, we're good with Carson Steele as our first and second down back, as opposed to, no, we got this guy up to speed, and he's a veteran, so we're not going with the rookie, first and second down. We're going with the, veteran, and he's going to be playing, more first and second down than Carson Steele. We'll see. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next. 11:45, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and players. We'll do that as we continue on this Wednesday edition of the show. And then we will talk with Braden Gall, and Mick Schaefer will join us as well coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Joining us now, talking a little bit about what's going on in the youth sports community here in Kansas City and the impacts that have been made with some people that we've been working with, and Bill Brandmeier with Sharewaves joining us. And then we're going to talk with John Solomon, Community Impact Director at the Aspen Institute Sports and Society Program. Bill, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Hey, dude, I'm so glad to be here. Can I just say that having Sterling here just makes me feel at home? Like,
oh, nice.
He's one of my guys.
Why is
like,
that?
Thank you,
well,
Bill.
Sterling helped me early on. He
Okay.
helped me produce some shows for Sharewaves, and
Nice.
and
Good for you,
back
Sterling.
when he was cutting his teeth, kind of learning this whole game, and now he's like the big guy, and it's so awesome to see you grow.
You're a
and,
sweetheart, Bill. Thank you.
and I'd like to welcome John Solomon to the call. He's calling in from Washington, D.C. John's part of the Aspen Institute's Project Play division. He is the director of community relations, right? Isn't that right, John? You're a community relations guy?
Community impact.
Community
Impact.
impact.
Director. He directs the impact in the community.
Yes,
Bill.
he does. And he
That's what he
actually
does.
is the author of the Kansas City State of Play Community Report, which is this incredible document that has been a year in the making. John, I just want you to know on September 17th of 2019, I sat in on the State of Play Summit that Tom Ferry had. I think it was, I'm not even sure where it was, but I was online. I went back into my notes. It was September 17th, which is the date this report was released yesterday. And I just can't believe how good this is, that it's all synergistic.
Yeah, no, those from Detroit. We're really excited to release State of Play Kansas City yesterday. Really a deep dive looking at the state of youth sports and physical activity, and also potential recommendations on how we want more kids playing sports and being physically active because of all the benefits that we know that can come from it.
So with the State of Play Kansas City, can you explain like what it was, what the study was, what were you guys looking for to find out about Kansas City as to why this study was commissioned? And I want to get into the results here in a little bit, but just simply, what is it? What was the State of Play Kansas City report in this background and research in this project?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about a year-long project in partnership with Children's Mercy Kansas City, where we analyze what are the barriers and what are the opportunities for more children in the Kansas City region to play sports and be physically active because of all the academic, social, emotional, physical benefits that we know that can come from physical activity. So we conducted a number of interviews with key stakeholders in the community. We held focus groups with children and coaches and parents and sports administrators. One of the key components of the report is we surveyed more than 4,000 youth throughout the Kansas City region to understand their experiences, like what sports do they play, what sports do they want to try, why do they play or why don't they play, in some cases. What are their experiences with coaches and other adults? We also held last April in Kansas City what we call the State of Play Kansas City Summit, in which we brought a lot of key stakeholders from the youth sports and physical activity and public health sector to a conference together to brainstorm of, okay, what challenges are you all seeing and what recommendations might make sense? And so ultimately it's packaged up into a final report that came out yesterday with some survey results and findings and recommendations.
So how does Kansas City stack up? Maybe how does Kansas City stack up against other cities, and what were the findings as to the opportunities and the access that we have here in this area for youth sports?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key highlights, the key benefit is that there are a lot of great programs and quality programs in Kansas City. They're not necessarily connected together, right? And this is very true in many communities across the country. There are a lot of silos. Youth sports is very unregulated and doesn't really have a lot of communication or coordination to really benefit everybody, and so everybody is sort of talking with each other. So that was one takeaway. We did find that in our survey, about 20% of surveyed youth in the Kansas City region receive 60 minutes of physical activity each day, which is what's recommended by the CDC. That's below the physical activity rates for the U.S. at 24%, and also below Kansas and Missouri, 24% and 26% for Missouri. Girls girls are less physically active and play sports than boys. 15% physical activity rate for girls versus 24% for boys. That's common in other communities across the country, but sort of speaks to how we have to be more intentional as well, thinking about getting girls playing. Another takeaway, we find this in communities across the country, and it's definitely true in Kansas City as well. When you ask why children play sports, the top reasons are having fun and playing with friends, and these are by far the top reasons. Winning games and trying to earn a college scholarship rank much lower. That's not to say that we get rid of travel sports and there's no value for them and we shouldn't be competitive and try to compete. It's just putting them into context that, and that there needs to be some more balance in sports activities, because what children actually want is the social benefits that come from sports.
Well, I always
and then lastly,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Lastly, I want to hear this last point.
Yeah, and the last thing also is that household income can really impact the type of sports experiences that kids can have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, surveyed children from low-income homes were 3 times less likely to play on travel sports teams than those from high-income homes. The lower-income children were also less likely to say that they have fun in sports or they're gaining sports knowledge from their most recent sports experience compared to the wealthiest youth. And this is common elsewhere. It's sort of this divide of sort of the haves versus have-nots in terms of who can access quality sports experiences.
We're talking with Bill Brandmeier and John Solomon and this State of Play Kansas City report. So what do we do now? How do we leverage? What do we do to try to create more access, to try to find what the future can be in improvements in youth sports? Because I know, Bill, that's something you focused a lot on in Share Waves, and that is a passion of yours, is access to youth sports. So how does the State of Play Kansas City report then come into this sort of action plan now moving forward as to we've got the information, so now what?
My hope with the State of Play report was that it would do 2 things. It would wake Kansas City up to the opportunity of what it means to impact kids' lives with the power of sports, which Shareways has been all about for 5 years. And the second thing I hoped it would do is to help us understand how we can come together and form a coalition of smaller groups of nonprofits and unify around the principles that can help enhance the experience for young people. One of the biggest takeaways I got from the report was that when kids are physically active in Kansas City, they feel better 2 times more, better mental wellness than they do if they don't have physical activity. And the science is behind physical activity and exercise, and so it's about the movement. It's about getting kids off their phones. It's about finding ways to get high school kids to participate in sports where they don't normally get opportunities. And this is the energy that the Aspen Institute brings to Kansas City. This is why this report is so monumentous. Is that a good word?
Yeah, sure. It is now.
It's so critical that we wake up to this opportunity, because our kids are hurting, and we can see it in the data. But when you sit in front of the kids and talk to them, John, you can kind of maybe share some of your experiences being in front of these kids. They really want to play, and they want to play with their friends, and they want to have fun. And they don't want to be corrupted by other things that sports can turn into.
John, one of the things I want to know, and last one for you, is how do we so have you seen success stories from other cities as to you have this State of Play and now they put in this action plan and there is an impact and there are numbers that increase? Have you seen that in other cities?
Yeah, I mean, some communities have invested more, right, financially and just like capacity-wise into investments into newer facilities that are equitable for children, into new, like, organizations. For instance, just having, like, an athletic council or some sort of backbone organization or coalition that is thinking about this in the community every day and bringing the right people to the table, whether it's local government and schools and travel sports providers and parks and rec. So that's one potential route to go. Also, Kansas City has a great opportunity with the World Cup coming in 2026, right? All eyes are going to be on Kansas City. This is such a passionate sports community, just with pro sports, much less bringing the eyes of the world here. And one thing that has occurred in other major international events from host cities like the Olympics or World Cups is you try to leave like a legacy. for that particular city. And in many cases, it is a legacy around youth sports, around greater investment, or around recognition programs around certain principles, such as the Aspen Institute's Children's Bill of Rights in Sports. There are ways to really connect major events to investment so all children have greater access to sports and physical activity.
Yeah, it's a really cool deal, and it's important work, and the community certainly can benefit, and I believe it will benefit with the work that you guys at the Aspen Institute have done, and then partnering now with Bill and Sharewaves moving forward. John Solomon, the Community Impact Director at the Aspen Institute Sports and Society Program with the State of Play Kansas City Report, and Bill Brandmeier with Sharewaves. Guys, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for what you guys are doing, the work you've put in, and the impact it can have on Kansas City and youth sports.
We're in the zone. Let's go.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, brother.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's John Solomon, Bill Brandmeier. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk with Cynthia Freeland coming up next, some NFL, some analytics.
Down. Like if you are a big boy, if you're very tall and you can keep your booty down low, then you are far more successful.
She's crunched the numbers and the results are clear.
The back of booty isn't as good, as it turns out.
If she picks a dog, she'll have the math to back it up.
It's not like Travis Kelce is done. My dog is very excited about this, just so you know.
It's Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll hear from the Chiefs coming up later on this hour. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. We'll see which players will be at the podium today. They get set for the Atlanta Falcons. They signed Kareem Hunt yesterday to the practice squad. The expectation that he will be elevated, quote, soon, which is a very relative word, whatever soon may mean. But right now, very soon, in fact, right now, Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. We talk with her about this Chiefs team, some things around the NFL as well. Cynthia, welcome into the show. How are you?
Happy Wednesday.
Yes.
I'm great. Thank you.
Yes, it is a Wednesday. Amazing that it's going into week 3 already. It's just we're going to wake up and it's going to be the Super Bowl. I know it. But through the first 2 weeks of the season, it has not been pretty for the Chiefs to get away with a victory. They have won both games the first 2 weeks of the season on the very last play as time expires. That could, the result go one way or another, and they have found themselves 2-0. Before we get into some of those things, I guess just a general reaction and takeaway from the Chiefs' 1-point victory over the Bengals on Sunday afternoon.
Felt like Sunday was opposites day in general, so to come out on the right side of that, because I think 8 underdogs won in week 2, which is wild, and 2 more against the spread. So let's just say, coming out on the right side, that's all you need. And we know that the Bengals put up a special defense specifically for this Chiefs team. It's like, Lou Anarumo has a special, probably a room in his house devoted to scheming against Patrick Mahomes. So, it was a great game, for a Chiefs fan, of course, but also really interesting to see how some of the new wrinkles unfold in this specific team. A good test early, so that as the season wears on, they can kind of make some adjustments and figure out what they're going to do, especially without Pacheco for a while.
So here's what and we'll talk a little bit about that, but here's what I wonder from an analytics side of it. So the Chiefs win the first 2 games of the season on the very last play of the game. The odds of you winning both of those games in the NFL, probably somewhat low. And the NFL, Sterling and I talked about this earlier this week. It's like, the NFL has a way of correcting itself. So if the Chiefs lose 1 or 2 of these games later on, it's just one of those things that happens in football. So from a statistical analysis standpoint, when we talk about, sort of regressing to the mean, if the Chiefs have won a couple of these games, does it then mean that, okay, well, now the numbers have to even out? Or do you look at it and say, well, these games have already happened. The rest of the way is still going to be traditionally what the NFL would be in close games. It doesn't mean because you won these 2, therefore the next 2 you go up and play, you will go 0 for 2 as opposed to maybe 1-1.
I love the karma element in that, right? You used up your wins, now you got to take some losses. I mean, the truth is over a long period of time that the number does even out. However, each individual roll of the dice isn't impacted by the last one, other than injuries or, specific learning. So, you're right. Sometimes you're on the wrong side of it and sometimes you're on the right side of it, but you don't use up your luck, right? You are taking each game as an individual dice roll, which is why we have to take even, over the sum of the 272 games in the regular season, you will see some years where, a specific team ends up on the wrong side of that more often or on the right side of that more often. But again, that's where the psychology comes in, because I think every single person on that Chiefs team believes that if you give them 13 seconds, the team can win. So it's not, there's a little bit of psychology involved in it, but also, parity is what makes the NFL so great. So, we don't have enough games in a season for it to be like baseball where, you'll go through some ups and some downs and they kind of even out to who you are. We just don't have that many rolls of the dice.
Yeah, it's a good point with only I say only 17 games because now it's 17. It was 16. It's going to be 18 very soon, and we're going to say only 18 games as well. But it also, it comes down to some of these games. And I've always wondered, Cynthia, at what point is it okay to throw the flag at that situation? Because you can't throw the flag in that situation. Whatever that situation is sort of dependent on what team you're rooting for and what time of the game is left. My standpoint has always been, in my view, of if it's a penalty in the first quarter, it's a penalty in the fourth quarter. It does not matter. But all joking aside, the flag was thrown. It was a penalty. It worked out in the Chiefs' favor. But the previous 2 penalties did not work out in the Chiefs' favor. Is that one of those things to where they ultimately even out? Or is there something to what the Chiefs have been able to do that this theory and narrative and conspiracy theory across the NFL with fans and opposing fan bases that the Chiefs benefit from late penalties more often than not on 50-50 calls?
I mean, I think actually Taylor Swift wrote that rule. It's her fault, right? She called Roger Goodell, who gets in the ear of the ref and is Taylor says not happening. Yep. I mean, sure, there are things that are true. For example, certain crews, they do call penalties more often than others. That's why, on broadcast you'll hear like this crew called the fifth most penalties, whatever. But I don't necessarily think that they're, the color red doesn't mean that they're not calling it versus the color green, which means go and call. Like, I think a lot of those, and players do actually have reputations. Some people jump, they encroach a ton, or they, false start a ton. And there is some confirmation bias in all of our lives. But the truth is, the way that someone plays and the way that a team plays does predict for a little bit of change in calls, but it's not it's fake to say that it's fake news to say that like they're getting, fourth quarter is a different called. I don't know. I think it's ridiculous.
I think there's a couple things that I've been thinking about the last couple of days, and I get the Bengals fans' frustration. I do.
Sure.
In losing in the AFC Championship game when Osai hits Patrick Mahomes, and that was a clear penalty. Whether people say you shouldn't call that penalty in that situation, don't hit him 2 yards out of bounds. I mean, that was a clear and obvious. It's a penalty 100 times out of 100. And then this one where you've got a guy that is playing through the receiver to try to go for the ball. Whether he's going for the ball or not, he goes through the receiver. It's 4th and 16. It's not a Hail Mary. And one of the things I was thinking about, Cynthia, is there are times when it's just you've got players that are better than other players when you're a better team or have better situations and matchups. Osai was a rookie against Patrick Mahomes, and he lost his head in that situation, and he hits Patrick Mahomes out of bounds. This was a 7th-round rookie safety that was in the game that doesn't have experience in that situation to know it's 4th and 16. I don't need to be going to intercept the ball. I just need to go around him and knock his hands down so that the ball is not caught. Instead, I'm going for the interception, and I play through him. Rice and Mahomes in that situation were better than the 7th-round rookie. Patrick Mahomes and his ability to get around the edge and then go out of bounds with plenty of time, and Osai being a younger guy in that situation for the first time, made a mistake. But also, Cynthia, early in the game, it was 4th and 16 because a second-year player who was overmatched had hands to the face against a really good player, Trey Hendrickson. And the Chiefs converted, a long play to Travis Kelce in the previous drive, but it was called back because a rookie in Kingsley was overmatched against a really good defensive end, and it was a holding call. Like, sometimes these things happen because the player that's going up against the other guy is just simply better, and in that situation, maybe your technique leaves you at that time. Maybe the moment is too big for you at that particular time, and the better player sometimes and more times than not might win that individual matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I would have to say on individual bases like that is the Bengals, especially in week 2, they're 1-9 in first 2 weeks since we've seen Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow be in the league. But I guess Jamar Chase was after him. But ultimately, they haven't had a lot of their high-end players playing. I mean, Chris Jenkins hasn't taken the field yet. That's their 2nd-round pick, a defensive tackle who was supposed to help shore up some of the problems that would occur when DJ Reader leaves town. So when you don't have your best new players playing even, and you can't create that chemistry, it also creates more confusion. So I think part of their problem is their lack of off-season, preseason and training camp snaps together. You're going to have more errors in general, too, especially early on.
Visiting with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. The Kansas City Chiefs, and you talked about the defensive line for the Bengals and not being able to stop the run. They had a rash of injuries, and they lost a couple of other players in the game as well. The first half, the Chiefs, with Isaiah Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes, they averaged almost 6 yards per carry with Pacheco and Mahomes, yet they only put 10 points on the board. We're proponents around here for the you throw to win and you run when you're winning. That was one of those things. It's like, oh my God, they're running the ball so well, but they're not scoring points. Like, I don't know. Is it if they were passing the ball every time, would they be scoring points? I don't know. It's just sometimes it can get frustrating when it's like it feels like, okay, they are just gashing this defense. Here's a handoff and it's 6 yards. But if you throw the ball for 6 yards, it almost feels like it's not too bad. You only gave up 6 yards on that pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because time has a value too, right? Like, so even like chewing up a certain amount of time, it can come back to haunt you. But there's an opportunity cost there that's hard to Like, we want to see points. Like, no Chiefs fan is happy unless you're winning by, like, 21 points, right? Like, I love Chiefs fans for that. I mean, all football fans are like that. But, it's like you're kind of like, all right, well, we know we have the better team. We know we have the better quarter. Like, let's just throw the ball. I understand that. But there is a value to be able to rush, very, very effectively and efficiently, too, because you control the clock then. And in other games, see what happened with the Niners and the Packers in or not Packers, the Niners and the Jets in week 1, and you saw like how just ball control dictates your opportunities.
Yeah, and also like I'm not saying they need to pass the ball every time. That is
Right.
not what I'm advocating. Although I'd love to see what it would look like if they did that. But Isaiah Pacheco.
Experiment.
By the way, you were spot on last week when you said this is going to be a big Isaiah Pacheco game, and it
Yep.
was a big Isaiah Pacheco game. He was awesome in the game, and was a big reason as to why the Chiefs were able to pull out the victory because of his ability to run the football. But even with his almost 5 yards per carry, and us talking about Mahomes not having that great of a night, I mean, Mahomes' yards per attempt was 6. Pacheco's yards per carry was 4.7. So, even from
Right.
that standpoint, it's like you're gaining a 1.3 yards on average over the course of the game every time you throw it, as opposed to handing it off.
Yeah. I mean, I did not expect him to get hurt. That is clear.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So it was a big Pacheco game. You're right. I mean, now he gets. It was pretty big that he got injured in the game. Thank you, Cynthia. Ridiculous.
You're welcome.
How do you think they move forward then? Because Pacheco is a big part of this offense. We don't know what it would have looked like with Hollywood Brown. One play, that's it, that he had in the preseason. So have no idea what they're missing with Hollywood Brown. We know what Pacheco brings to the table, but what percentage or what level of Pacheco do you think they can get to with the running game with guys that will be filling in for him?
Yeah, I mean, with the guys that you have in that pass-catching core, even without Hollywood Brown, which is a big loss, it's still going to create some space to give, whoever's going to be there, Hunt, Steele, whatever. They all have great names. Like it's the all-name running back team. But, they're all going to have a little bit more of an opportunity and space to do it with, which is not to say that Pacheco is in any way replaceable, because he's not. But you can you can patch together a solution, especially with an opportunity. The Falcons are an interesting team, a very interesting defense that has a lot of areas to target that Andy Reid will know well. So, they had a nice outing against the Eagles, of course, but there are places, very vulnerable places of that defense, and I know Andy Reid will be able to find them and teach the running backs and get them where they need to be, in this next match. I'm not worried about that part at all.
Where are the vulnerable places on the defense for the Falcons?
I mean, I would imagine if you look to see, it was interesting, when Jalen Hurts was able to run, where did he run? They made some weird call decisions. Okay, that's aside. That's different. But, how are you able to get Saquon Barkley? They knew he was coming. What happened with the loaded box? You're not going to get a loaded box. Like any of those times that they loaded up with 7 men in the front, that's not going to happen for it. You're never giving Patrick Mahomes a loaded box. It's just not happening. So you'll have a lot of space. I would imagine outside runs, because Raheem Morris is a more traditional dude. He does come from that Shanahan tree, working for McVay, but I would imagine outside zone runs are going to be something where they're going to be haunted, because that is something that he does well, but also Andy Reid can really scheme up a guy who knows that tree so well. Let's look what happens against the Rams. Always a lot of points.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, is our guest. I wanted to talk to you about fourth down decisions, because we saw it in this Chiefs game against the Bengals that early on in the game you had the Bengals kick the field goal. The Chiefs went for it on fourth down on 4th and 1 at the 3-yard line and picked it up, and then didn't go for it on 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. The Bengals had 4th and goal at the 4, I think, 3 or 4. They end up scoring the touchdown. What did you think of the decision? And let's just go to the first drive for the Chiefs. The decision that Andy Reid on 4th and 1 at the 3-yard line, they go for it, they pick it up. 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, they decide to kick the field goal.
I mean, I don't always think going for it's the right option. If you've got the play, it is week 2, so if you've got the play in the playbook that you want to, number one, it sounds strange, but sometimes you don't want to put that stuff on film too early either. So there's a couple of considerations here. Number one is, You went for it on one. Maybe that was the play you wanted to show everybody, or you were willing to show everybody this week because you knew this team was vulnerable in the run game. Maybe you take the points. Maybe someone's exhausted. Maybe, Trey Hendrickson's getting the best of a guy, right? We saw that happen. So those are the considerations that a coach has to go through all at one time. Of course, we always like to see more points rather than less, but some points in general are great, and giving your guy a breath is also important there too, because the closer you get to the end zone, that becomes another defender, or maybe even the effective two defenders. So that's where I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, so in theory, it would be easier to pick up 4th and 1 at the 3-yard line than 4th and goal at the 1.
It is. I mean, let's just say average team, right? Like if you're the best team and loses the worst, maybe not, but it becomes that goal line becomes an extra defender. You don't have the same amount of space to work with, and if Trey Hendrickson's already doing that to you, then he has a little bit more of a opportunity to be disruptive as well.
Is there a point of diminishing returns on one specific drive if you go for it a number of times? So, say you've got 60% to, come through in this 4th down decision and 4th down and 1, and you convert it. Okay, now you got a 4th down and 1 again. Hey, you've got a 60% chance to convert this 4th down and 1. Does it get to a point to where those numbers start to say, the more times you go for it on 4th down, obviously the better chance you have of turning it over on downs, but is there a point of diminishing returns? Like, okay, you picked up 4th and 1 at the 3-yard line. Next 4th down says you're probably not going to get it, so take the points. Is there anything like that when you look at some of these games as to where, well, this number of 4th down conversions on one drive typically means that, you're not going to pick that up?
That's funny that you say it typically means you're not, because I would say depending on what you're running, maybe it could mean you are. If you are doing the same thing over and over again, if you are running the same play and they cannot stop you, I don't know if on if the 3rd, 4th down would be less likely to convert than the second. That would be really interesting to look at. But I would imagine if you keep finding success with one particular play, I don't think it matters how many times you do it. You're 60-40 on every single roll of that dice.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not additive, right? It's each time a 60-40.
Yeah.
And like I said, I am a big proponent of if you have a 4th down play that worked, I actually think teams should run it again, because teams don't do that. So like the poker hand of that would be just confusing enough for them to overthink it. So I love injecting randomness into 4th down calls. If you have a thick enough playbook of 4th down calls, which Andy Reid absolutely does, but some other teams don't. But if you have a thick enough playbook of them, you need to inject randomness into it so no one can get onto your patterns, because patterns are where people can get the advantage on 4th down. Because all defenses are doing are saying, okay, I see this, so it's not going to be this. It's process of elimination on defense. Offense, it's, okay, what can we do? It's defense. It's like, okay, this is what they're not going to do based on how they lined up. Okay, then the motion means this, and then this means this. And then eventually you get to a tendency. And once you get to that tendency, that's where I would love a team to just play the same 4th down call on one continued drive just to see what happens, because I actually think it would be incredibly successful.
Interesting.
Same play.
I would love to see that too. And then, well, except for the tush push or the
No. The tush push is that's a different piece
the
entirely.
brotherly shove. Yeah, that's a little different. Doing different things and some randomness, like bringing a linebacker in to play fullback for the Chiefs and Leo Chanel, instead of and I said it on Monday. I said, all right, I have a feeling next time you see Leo Chanel in the game, lining up in a fullback there's a handoff from Holmes who then pulls it back and it's a boot the other way, and somebody's out in a pattern. And he's looking for a receiver because, Chanel's in the game. Here's the handoff that they did last time. Or maybe there might be 2 more runs with Chanel that they're setting up for later on, the play off of that play when he's in there that they can use to their advantage. Visiting with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. All right, the Chiefs against tight ends this year has been pretty abysmal in 2 games. 25 catches, 276 yards, and a touchdown for the Chiefs when they've gone up against tight ends. Is there a connection there? Is it the way the Chiefs were just simply defending the run and Zay Flowers against the Ravens and Mark Andrews? They're defending Jamar Chase and the run against the Bengals, so it leaves those tight ends open? Or is there a real weakness that the Falcons and Cousins and Pitts can exploit?
I think it's more that I mean, look, go watch the routes that Zay Flowers ran in week 1, and it was like very not precise. That's my nice way of saying
I like it. Yeah.
He wasn't he very imprecise. There we go. And so I don't know if it was that they were, and of course Mark Andrews is always a concern, and Isaiah likely sort of popped out of nowhere. He became more of a threat. But I think on some level, then you got to look at, the Bengals. Like, Bengals week 1 had just like a confounding situation, and it's more like the tight end became their number 2 receiver because their number 2 receiver, T. Higgins, isn't playing. So I don't know if it's like the tight end specifically. I think, now we have all of these tight ends who are running routes like receivers. So even if they're, their number says they're a tight end in your guidebook, they're really playing wide receiver for a lot of plays. Like, so yes and no. I mean, I would say that, like, we're always going to have some tricks against Steve Spagnuolo. You're always going to try, but I don't think it's something where you're like, slot Kyle Pitts in for that touchdown. Like, I don't think that's. I mean, he's a great player and he's a strong tight end that the Chiefs will have to account for. But I don't think it's like both the Lions and the Giants have like incredible deficiencies at the linebacker position. Not this year necessarily, but in past years, it's not like one of those. I think it's more like a function of how do these offenses cobble together from missing pieces, things that they need. Well, we just happen to have pass catching tight ends that can get the job done.
We'll see. Hopefully that is the case. I want to talk to you real quick about Atlanta offense, and then we'll get your thoughts on the game. I've pointed out a couple of times, and I don't think it's going to be the case because Raheem Morris, a defensive guy, is probably not going to have his offense go tempo. But the Falcons have scored 3 touchdowns this year. One of those, the end of the half against the Steelers in a no-huddle 2-minute drill. And the end of the game against the Eagles, whether it was prevent defense or not, Kirk Cousins looked comfortable, got the snap, threw the ball. He was calling the plays out there, so sort of knowing what's going on. The other one was a long pass to Darnell Mooney, but they've scored 3 touchdowns. 2 of those have been in the no-huddle, hurry-up 2-minute drill. Any chance that if the Falcons have stagnated on offense a little bit on Sunday night, that Raheem Morris and offensive coordinator, and they say, you know what? Let's go. Let's just up tempo. Let's get in the 2-minute drill and see if Kirk Cousins can do this. And is there anything to the fact that Cousins has looked most comfortable in 2 drives when he's been in the 2-minute drill?
Yeah, I think the thing that's most comfortable is play action really made a big difference, and stop lining him up in the pistol. I mean, they pretty much stopped that. That was just, I asked a bunch of coaches, I'm like, why? And they're like, well, either he's having problems with mobility, which week 2 pretty much showed us that he looks like 80% regular Kirk Cousins, I would say. And then I think they were just overthinking it against the Steelers, where the Steelers defense was ferocious and their O-line was getting clobbered. I think they were overthinking a bit, so maybe a bit of both. But, the 2 minutes, the fast pace, the Kirk Cousins kind of owning the situation, I think that obviously works best for them. The difference between what Kirk Cousins will face this week versus what he faced in the Eagles is that the Eagles were making some weird decisions on offense. Let's just put it. The Eagles were making some weird decisions on offense time-wise that were making Kirk Cousins more comfortable in this 2-minute drill. He knew what he had to do, and he went out and executed it. And they're also, one of the areas of vulnerability for the Eagles are their secondary is safety's like the question mark people have, and they have some injuries at corner. I mean, Cooper DeJean started his first game. Like Kirk Cousins knows how to exploit that, for sure. So I just don't think that he's going to get the same types of sort of brain lapses from the offensive staff on the Chiefs to be able to take advantage of the timing situation.
Let's hope that's the case. All right, what do you see happening, and what do you think the game looks like on Sunday?
I mean, look, there's going to be no games. I mean, unless something, God forbid, happens, there's no games this season where I don't have the Chiefs favored. So the Chiefs, again, are favored. I have a strong Chiefs win in this one. It looks like, I'm just trying to see what my score here. I don't have a high-scoring game, though, so I think Vegas has it at 46.5 is the last time I saw it.
Yep.
And I have under that. So a strong Chiefs win in a game where Atlanta keeps it less close than 4.
I like that. Less close than 4.
My English is terrible, but I'm trying to say it without, say it nicely.
I love the way that you phrase things. It's part of the personality and the charm. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Cynthia, great stuff as always. Very much appreciate the time. Enjoy the football. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend.
Yes,
or
you too.
week or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. Week, weekend, whatever. It's we'll have a great something for sure.
Have a great something. Yes.
You too. There's Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Love
We're
the
all
conversation.
just counting down the days. To the weekend
right,
anyway.
Absolutely. It's hump day. We're almost at we are 30 minutes away from being right at the hump. Halfway through on a Wednesday, halfway through the show on a Wednesday at noon. So we're almost right there. What's that?
It is.
What is it?
Hump day.
It is.
Frank.
Mike,
Frank, what day is it?
Mike.
Hey, Dylan, what day is it?
Hump day. Seren did an amazing impersonation last week of
Did he?
Oh, it was.
I didn't hear it.
The Mike.
Mike. We got to get that then. For
I got to find it.
How many commercials have that sort of staying power? Because that is pretty impressive. A decade ago.
They were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like we still talk about it every Wednesday.
Hump day. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I'm not sure. All right,
Budweiser frogs.
Yeah. What's that?
What's up? Yeah.
Yo quiero Taco Bell. I think moving forward, it is both. It's both. I think that's probably one of them.
But I don't know if that's a good one.
But it has staying.
It does have staying power. Yeah.
All right, we'll hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Trent McDuffie will be at the podium today. We'll take a timeout, one more segment before we head out to Arrowhead. More Zone next. Andy Reid will be glowing today. I mean, glowing Andy Reid. We will have good mood Andy today with National Cheeseburger Day. Does he have the burger before or after the press conference?
How many questions about that get asked?
At least one. I think one and maybe a follow-up. I'll put the over-under 1.5, and I may go under.
Yeah.
I may go under, but I do think there's going to be one. If the over-under was at a half, I'd go over.
Yeah.
But yeah, there will be a question about cheeseburgers to Andy Reid. Maybe a question to Patrick Mahomes about did you get Andy Reid a cheeseburger for National Cheeseburger Day? Something along those lines. Keep it light, you know? You got
what's McDuffie's new nickname? I like it McStuffy. McDuffie is McStuffy.
Doc McStuffy.
Also, imagine hearing Rex Hudler say, McDuffie is McTuffy or McStuffy. Like that's the most Rex Hudler thing of all time.
Jamar Chase, you gots to go.
Clamps.
Locked him up. You're not going to sneak a touchdown by a hungry McDuffie.
How great would it be if just for one game you switched? Like you had Mitch Holtis do a Royals game.
Mahomes throws the ball while it's in the air. You hear Hudler. Oh! It's Rexgasm on a touchdown throw. There it is.
2025 preseason.
Love it. You got to get
I love that. You know
this
what?
idea. Here it is. We got to do that, man.
Do I get a helmet sticker for this idea?
Yeah, I like the idea.
That's a helmet sticker.
I like the idea. Rex Hudler doing one Chiefs game, whether it's preseason, needs to be a part of the broadcast booth for one Chiefs game. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie next. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Trent McDuffie. 913-912-4810. Text says, Rex and Denny Matthews in the booth for a Chiefs game. Like it. Mahomes drops back, surveys the field, looking right, rolling right, finds Kelce at the 20, breaks a tackle, 10-5, and gone, Kelce. Ding, ding. Bengals fans, you gots to go.
Okay, but what about Holtis doing a Royals game?
Bobby Witt up at I can't do a Mitch. This at bat is huge. There you go. That's all I got. I don't know. Home run, Kansas City. I have no idea. I think it's better with the Denny and Rex.
Yeah, I like that.
Doing the Chiefs as opposed to the other way around. So yeah,
that might be the greatest idea I've ever had. I've not had many great ideas, so it's not a high bar. But
I love the idea. I love the idea. It'd be awesome. It's time for the check the spot, 4th down spot. It's a first down or not. Obviously, it's brought to you by the parking spot. Easy to spot, easy to park. Parking spot it. One Arrowhead Drive. And it's a first down. But his touchdown calls would have to be, and gone, Kelce. And gone, Worthy. But there would also have to be a player at some point in Chiefs history named De Jesus. Just for S's and G's.
What about Perez? You can get a Perez in there.
Salvi Perez. Salvador Perez. Now lining up in the backfield. He's coming in at fullback. Yeah. Man, how would Denny say Sua Matia?
Oh, that's good.
Kingsley Sua Matia. Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea how he would pronounce it. But we're going to hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Trent McDuffie, I promise you. Eventually, very soon.
Okay, Lebo's
but
down there.
It's National Cheeseburger Day. Come on, man. Andy Reid's probably enjoying a nice little cheeseburger.
Lebo needs to ask
Andy about cheeseburgers?
About getting Denny and Hudler on for
one game.
That's what we need.
One game. Mitch can take care of it. Mitch can have Denny on to call like one series with the Chiefs.
Electric.
I mean, the guy ran routes for Len Dawson. Okay, he knows football. He played, come on, man. Played football. When Len Dawson would work out in the offseason, like Patrick Mahomes throws routes to his receivers, Lenny the Cool would throw routes to Denny Matthews. So
that's pretty badass.
Isn't it, though? It's so cool. Like, his story is amazing. So he knows his stuff. Rex knows about being physical, and contact, and, high intensity, high motor. He loves the game, right? Loves the players, loves the game, just like Taylor Swift. He loves the players. You love the game. We'll hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Trent McDuffie. We're going to talk with Braden Gull coming up a little less than an hour from now. Our college football insider owns the 440 Sports Podcast Network, Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio, and get his thoughts on the local teams. K-State heading to BYU, Mizzou, Vandy, and KU heading to West Virginia. Here's Andy.
Really, Pacheco's the only one to announce. He's been put on IR. Is having surgery today. I can't give you a time when he'll return, but there's, we'll just see if it's this season or next season. But we'll see how he does as he goes here. Other than that, there are no other injury. Everybody else will practice today. Look forward to the challenge of playing the Falcons. That's a great environment down there at their stadium, and Raheem's done a heck of a job with that group, which was obvious Monday night. So between Jimmy and Zach, and Marquise, they've got great coordinators and coaches, and they've got good players on top of that. So we need to have a good week of practice starting today, and I know our guys are looking forward to the challenge of playing a good football team like this. With that, time's yours.
Andy, what are your plans for Kareem?
Yeah, so we'll get him in here and get some work kind of get him back in the swing of playing, and then we'll just see. You know, as the game gets closer, we'll see how things go there and so on. But we'll try to get him in a position where he's ready to play either this week, next week, or the following week. We'll just see how long it takes.
So a chance he could play in Atlanta?
Yeah, there's a chance. Yeah, gonna try to see where we're at as far as the other part. But we've got other guys that can jump in and play for him.
The Chiefs released him pretty quickly, as you know, after that video came out a few years ago. How do you reconcile that action with bringing him back now?
Yeah, so it's really, you know, what we told him and publicly. We just thought he needed a change of scenery and get some help and take care of business there. And, you know, we felt like he did that. He's, you know, he did a nice job in Cleveland. And we talked to the people there, and there were no issues there. So, you know, we felt okay by bringing him back. He's 29 years old now, so time flies. But he's 29 years old, and you know, it looks like he's grown up some. So.
And is this the first time you guys have had this conversation about potentially bringing him back?
Where it was real, yes. Yeah.
What were your conversations with him like that gave you the confidence of what you just outlined?
Well, just calling around and making sure that things were okay. Pat stayed good friends with him, so he was at Pat's wedding, and so you know those two came out in the same class and developed a friendship here, and then their general manager spoke highly of him, so, coaches and so on. So we felt good about it.
Did you need to have a specific conversation points with him that reassured you too?
So I was at the wedding. I talked to him there, and then I also talked to him before he got here and when he got here. So.
Was it the type of thing where you felt like you need to speak specifically about the past?
No, just make sure that keep your nose clean, right? That's the important part, and go play football. And that's, I think people deserve a second chance if they've done something to work on the first part of it.
Andy, if everything goes well on the field, right? If he's in shape and obviously takes the playbook pretty well, is there a specific role that you sort of see him? Whether that's easing him into those first few games, or is there something you can foresee for him that you can sort of define?
I want to see where he's at. I want to see him out there working today and where he's at. I'll probably have him doing more scout team stuff today than actually with the group. But let's see where he's at, and I'll be able to judge it better from there. He'll have some retention from the stuff that we've done here. So, and he's a sharp kid. He can pick everything up that's new. But let's get him started first and kind of see where we're at with.
And generally speaking, this has been a tough 10 days or so injury-wise with the Brown news and Pacheco. Just what's the messaging to the guys that are left to play moving forward?
Yeah, so listen, our hearts go out for those kids first, and both those guys love to play the game. But we're also fortunate to have good players here that can step in, and we expect them to step up and play. And that's a tribute to Brett and his staff.
You guys have elevated Keontae Ingram to the active roster at this point. What do you like about him?
So he had a really good camp for us. Felt comfortable with him moving up. And like I said, you moved up, you're expected to be ready to play. And I think he's done that. He's worked hard on the scout team part of it, stayed in tune with the offense. He's in all the meetings, so felt he was ready for that.
Dave?
Going back to the part about the playbook, I wonder how much it has changed. And it's been quite a while, and you've got a whole lot of different personnel. What do you know coming back? How quickly can you pick it up?
Yeah, he'll know the base protections. He'll know the base runs. Some of the routes are a bit new, but we're not flexing them out and making them do all that. So he's just got to, some of the terminology, he's just got to hear the route terminology. But, right now it's job specific for that team. So it's not like you're coming into training camp and you've got 300 plays. So he just has to make sure he stays in tune with that.
Blair? Andy, first road game, you guys, the franchise has been really good on the road, 10 years or so. What are the conditions that need to be created to have the mindset to be successful on the road?
Well, this is a loud venue, so you got to be able to handle the noise. Then you have to come in with the right attitude. I mean, that's how it is. We try to keep it as consistent as we can with the travel part and times for meetings and such. So that's what we do. But every game's a challenge, so in itself. So whatever we did before doesn't matter for right now. So we just got to make sure that we prepare ourselves for it.
Last four, we're going to start with Nate.
Andy, you talked before about seeing statistical trends, sort of cycles of the NFL. I know it's just 2 weeks, but there's a lot of teams obviously passing the ball short, perhaps right at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. You guys are included in that. What are the benefits and what are some of the explanations as to why you think yourself and other teams are throwing the ball shorter than usual?
Yeah, some of it's the matchups according to coverage. Depending on what teams do. Our run game was effective this past week, so we use that more than the down the field stuff. And so it just depends on the matchups. I think most people would tell you that. Some of the teams that are throwing down the field had a little bit more space and different coverages to work with, where they could do that.
Sam?
Andy, obviously Kareem's numbers last year, I'm sure weren't what he wanted them to be. What did you see on tape from him last year in combination with the workout you guys had with him?
Yeah, so he had sports hernia surgery done a bit ago, so he, I think he was probably affected by that, a little bit, just coming back off of that. So, but I still saw the burst, the toughness when he got back in there. And then we worked him out here and felt good about it. But we'll see. He's getting up there. The running back say he's 29 years old. That's for a running back, that's old.
Andy, did you ever think this reunion would ever happen before Pacheco's injury? Was there ever a thought that you might be able to coach him again?
No, but I think we meant what we said, that you need to take care of this. I mean, you can't, this isn't good as you go through life for anybody. And so, it seems like he has a grasp on that. And I know he's done good here since that point. And, I anticipate that continues. But, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have brought him back.
We'll go to the last two guys with Steve and then Matt. Go ahead, Steve.
Coach, in regards to Pacheco's surgery today, I believe it was 2005, T.O. had that same, fibular surgery. What do you remember about T.O.'s journey back that same season that you can share with Pacheco?
Yeah, he attacked.
That was 20 years ago.
No, I take a lot of fish oil. I thought that T.O. attacked it, and he was going to play in the Super Bowl. And that's what he was going to do. And no matter what, he was going to play in that Super Bowl. So, between the chamber he was sleeping in and living basically with Rick all day, he was able to come back relatively quick. The thing you can learn from that is you attack the injury and stay positive with it. Everybody's different. Yeah. But the fact that he wasn't going to be denied that opportunity. And Pacheco, like T.O., Pacheco's one of those guys that you have to back off, and I know this is how he'll do. Yeah. He wasn't going to allow anybody to get him off of that field. Right. If he had to crawl off of there, he was going to get off the field. So that's just how he's wired. But I would tell you that within reason and the guidance of Rick, I know he'll get himself back and ready to go whenever that is, as fast as he can.
Coach, it's National Cheeseburger Day. Do you have any plans to celebrate?
Yeah, McAfee just sent me a cheeseburger from McDonald's. I don't. I thought that was unique. McAfee's unique. So, I can't wait to enjoy it.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, there's Andy Reid. There's one. So we set the over at a half, and we said over at over under 1.5, and we said under.
We
so
need one more from Holmes or McDuffie.
That's right.
One burger talk.
That's exactly right. We're going to do a number of things that we heard from Andy Reid, specifically about Kareem Hunt. I thought it was an interesting one there from Steve at the end about the comparison with Terrell Owens. So we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes here in just a little bit. The head coach press conference presented by and brought to you by Greengrass Cattle Company. You can buy their 21-day dry-aged, grass-fed, grain-finished, farm-to-table beef from their Weston store or online at greengrasscattleco.com. And brought to you by Robert Brogdon's Olathe Buick GMC. They offer unbeatable deals and a massive inventory of over 300 new Buick and GMC vehicles. Shop now at robertbrogdon.com. We will hear from Patrick Mahomes and Trip McDuffie here in just a little bit. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City. Here's Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick, Andy said that you maintained a relationship with Kareem over the years. Just wonder what that journey's been like for him from your perspective over the past since he's left here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Kareem was a close friend of mine while he was here. Just being in the same draft class, everything like that. He came to my wedding. But obviously, he went to Cleveland, has had a good career there, has learned and become a better person, and I'm glad to have him back now. And let's get him accustomed to the offense and see how fast we can get him out there.
What have your conversations been like with him over the past couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was coming into the building. Obviously, I know he had to go through his workout process and meeting with the coaches and Veach and everybody. But at the end of the day, man, I just root for the person to keep becoming a better and better person. And the football secondary, but I'm glad to have him back and in the building. And I gave him a high five and a hug when I saw him because it's a person that I used to spend a lot of time with a long time ago.
Patrick, when you left, I think the term you used was "we don't do those things." So I wonder how you found a way to balance both your friendship with him, but also to condemn the behavior. What that's like for a friend? Yeah,
I mean, I think anyone, everybody has friends that make mistakes, and obviously some are bigger than others. But at the same time, you want to make the person better, and you want to see them taking the right steps to become a better person for themselves, their family, and the rest of society. And so I think you've seen that with Kareem. And so I've stayed in touch with him just to see how he's doing, how his family's doing, everything like that. And he's been able to carve out a great career in the NFL, but I mean, you've seen he's been able to keep his nose clean and be a better person, and that's what you want in order to make everybody better people.
You and Brent have been lockstep, like draft film and always sharing things. What did you see on the tape? What can you reasonably expect production-wise on the field once he does get caught up?
Yeah, I mean, a guy that plays hard, plays physical, can catch the ball in the backfield, still has explosion in between the tackles, and so. We have a lot of guys in that running back room now that are going to have a chance to kind of take up some of that role while Isaiah is out. But they're ready for it. And I'm glad that Veach has built such a great running back room, and adding Kareem is going to be another step in that of taking a vital role of this team until we can get popped back.
We didn't have a chance to ask Coach about what's going on at left tackle today. What did you see, and what's it been like with Kingsley and Wanya over the last couple of days looking at film, and who do you expect to be out there with you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't make those decisions at the end of the day. I have a lot of trust in both those guys. I thought Kingsley had good snaps, had bad snaps. That's just part of the process of being a rookie, going up against a great pass rusher. But I think you saw he took accountability. He's learning from it. And then Wanya's played snaps as well, and he's done great things. He's getting better and better. And so I think the coaches will, at the end of the day, make a determination they think is best for the team. But I trust both those guys, whoever's out there.
There are guys that are going to take the carries Pacheco had, but how do you replace, like, he just brought a different pop and energy. How do you replicate that and, I guess, replace that on offense?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be everybody. That's not going to be just that running back room. I mean, you said it, the energy that he brings. I mean, the way he runs the football, the way he pops up. He's always positive mindset. That's going to take other guys to step up with. It starts with me. I got to bring that mindset. I got to play better football, put guys in better positions. But at the same time, I have to keep the energy going. And so that's a special thing that Pop does. I don't think one person can do that, have that amount of energy and play that hard. I mean, it really is a special characteristic of him. But I think the whole team can come together and bring that energy in his absence.
Patrick, you had a battle back from an injury back in, with your knee. What was your message like for Pop to go through that?
Yeah, I mean, he loves the game, so he wants to be out there, and he puts so much work into it. So I think at first, I mean, you obviously are upset that you have the injury, but if I know anything, I know that man's going to be getting after it. It's going to be more about the trainers having to hold him back than him not getting in and getting to work, because he loves it so much, man, and he's in the building, he's working, and I'm excited for the comeback, man, because he's going to come back ready to go whenever he gets back.
Patrick, how fast could you tell what had happened to him? And Andy made a point of saying he wasn't going to let anybody help him off the field. He was going to get off the field himself.
Yeah, I knew. I didn't see the tackle because of the angle that I was at. I've seen it obviously now. The fact that he popped up and he was like running off the field, and I mean, I think he was trying to get back on the field, and that just speaks to the type of competitor that he is. And so I didn't realize it was as serious of an injury until after the game, just like the moment that we were in. But like I said, he's going to attack it, man, and he'll be back, I'm sure, sooner rather than later.
Patrick, I was going to say, what's the mindset required to have success on the road? Is it different than just any other game?
I think the mindset is that you have to just come in with a mentality and really sharpen up on your details, which I think offensively we have to do anyways, starting with me. And so this is a good team, a lot of great players. I've played against a lot of these guys that are all in one spot now with a great defensive scheme, and it's going to be a great environment Sunday Night Football in Atlanta. So we're going to have to sharpen up our stuff offensively. Defense is playing great. They're going to keep playing good. But we got to continue to get better and better at the little things, and so that we can go out there and just play free when we get there.
What are the challenges with going up against a Ricky Morris defense, generally speaking?
Yeah, well, first off, his schemes, he has a really good scheme. He has a good understanding of defenses and what the offense is trying to attack in his defense. So I think that, along with he's very game plan specific. So even though he has his scheme and has things that he works on, he tries to take away what you're best at. That's what all the best defensive coordinators do, and now he's a head coach, and you can see just from the little interactions I've had with him and the interactions I've seen, I mean, he's a great leader. And I think that's something that every player that you see that's played on one of his teams, offense or defensively, has said. And so it's going to be a great challenge for us, man, and I'm excited for it.
Last couple of Nate and Sam. Go Nate.
Patrick, I'm sure you're aware of this, but you got a lot of passes that were either at or behind the line of scrimmage. Last week, it's starting to become a trend league-wide.
Yep.
What do you attribute it to, whether from your standpoint or just when you're watching other guys play?
Yeah, I think this last week in general, I didn't play to my standard, so I think I have to be better. There was some opportunities down the middle areas of the field that I think I missed. We hit, obviously, the deep one to Rasheed, but whenever teams take away the deep stuff, you have to throw it underneath, but you still have to have the ability to threaten the middle of the field, so that's something that I will continue to work on and get better at. And then limiting mistakes for myself. But I think across the league, I think teams are just going to make you drive the entire field. I think that's just kind of the thought process, and then trying not to let you score in the red zone. But there is opportunities out there, and you just have to execute at a higher level. There's not as many as maybe I've had previously.
Sam?
Similar question, maybe you just answered it, but you mentioned earlier that you have to get better at the details. Is it that, just your selection of where to put the ball?
Yeah, that just with the tight zone coverages, kind of the match zone coverages that you're playing, the windows aren't big, and so you have to be on time. Even if you look at the first interception I threw, I think Travis had a window there. I just was late to that window, and so just being on time, and if you don't, the defenses are collapsing those windows quick, and so those are the little things that I have to be better at, of getting the ball there on time, accurately, and at not making the mistakes at the same time. So it's just stuff that you have to continue to work on throughout the season. But we got to be better. I got to be better as the season goes on.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, go. There's Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from Trent McDuffie here very soon. And Patrick Mahomes' relationship with Kareem Hunt and the passes behind the line of scrimmage, how he played against the Bengals, and what the expectations are from him and where he needs to improve. So he's not playing up to his standard, he is saying, and some of those quarterback efficiencies non-adjusted for opponent, should point that out, have him at like 23rd or 24th in the NFL. Adjusted for opponent, he's like 11th or 12th, but still. Here's Trey McDuffie.
Thin the margin has been for you guys. You're 2-0, you're feeling good, but it's come down right to the wire. Feel fortunate to be 2-0, or it's just you guys just know how to win these games?
Yeah, man, anytime you're 2-0 in this league is a great thing. I feel like there's a lot of things you got to clean up, technique-wise, flags. I mean, you guys see it, turnovers. On the defensive side, I think creating turnovers is a big thing we got to do. But, man, 2-0, no matter what, any way you win, you just want to get that win at the end of the day.
I know you guys have talked a lot about missing Legarius, but obviously now you were the go-to guy.
Yeah.
Just how do you feel like you've attacked that so far, or just 2 weeks self-eval in a sense?
Yeah, I think I'm doing my job good, Definitely things I got to clean up on the back end as far as communication, as far as technique-wise. Kind of still getting comfortable out there at the corner position and playing that role that Coach Spags wanted me to play. But I thought I did a good job at just making sure everybody knows where I'm at on the field. Having to travel, a lot of guys have to go to different places. So just being vocal about that and just letting people know where I'm at on the field is kind of something that I'm trying to work on a little bit better.
Can you sum up the defenses? You guys, the last couple of possessions, it's like you locked down and it was over for them.
Yeah. Man, Coach Spags always talks about the 4 most important drives of a game. It is the first drive coming out of first quarter and third quarter, and then the end of the game, second half and first half. But you needed that fourth quarter. I mean, that's where you win games. No matter how much you're down, no matter how much you're up, it all comes down to those last few drives, because that's where the offense is going to give you the best plays. That's where all your mistakes kind of get cleaned up and all your checks after halftime come in. So really just focusing on being at your best in the fourth quarter, I think, is what we've done a great job at here, and something that we continue to work on each and every year.
Sherman, you mentioned being more vocal. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from off the field. On the field, I mean, communication is communication, but kind of like during walkthroughs and in meetings and just throughout the week, just making sure everybody's clear on what my job is, because like I said, some of the things I do kind of changes what other people have to do, different positions, stuff like that. So making sure when we get on the field, everybody doesn't have to think, we can just go out there, play, they know where I'm at. I feel like will help us just become a better defense, just play faster.
What do you think the numbers tight ends have gotten against you guys here in the first couple of games have been more than you'd expect, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Is that they're just taking what you give them, or is there more to it with how the teams have attacked you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit just how our defense has been playing, these first 2 games, the calls that we're given, and just how the scheme has matched up. But we trust Jay Reed out there, all the linebackers, and I think we're just going to continue to keep attacking these tight ends, just how we always have.
There was a question of who's going to be the other primary cornerback. It's been Jalen. Just how you felt like he's done these first 2 weeks.
Man, I love that man. He's one of those dudes that you've seen it over these past 3 years. He just continues to just get better and better. Doesn't always make the play, doesn't always be in the right position, but as you just continue to watch the game, as you continue to just watch him, you can tell his confidence is getting there. You can tell his technique's getting there, and he's just one of those guys that just loves the game. He brings such good energy to the room, and I just love having him out there across from me.
You mentioned the last drive of the game. Atlanta had a wonderful last drive of the game for them on Monday night. What did you see from them? Because they didn't have much going on the whole rest of the game. How were they able to kind of get that done? And what kind of troubles will they give you guys maybe?
Yeah, they did really good, like you said, end the game drive. I thought they did good at managing the clock. I thought their play calls were good. They're able to get a few chunks in there, which as an offense, that's what you want in 2 minutes at the end of the game. Get those chunk plays so the clock kind of goes away. But on defense, I think in order to stop that, it's really just win your matchups, whether you're in man, whether you're in zone, making sure you know what they're attacking us with, knowing our weaknesses and knowing what Kirk Cousins likes to do. When it gets to the 2 minute, I feel like a lot of teams kind of just go back to their bread and butter plays, the things that they can just run efficiently so that they can get in, get out. And understanding what they like to do there, I think, is the defensive advantage.
I know during a game you can't watch what Chris Jones is doing, but I don't know how much he catches your eye on film, particularly just the influence he had in that second half against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a guy like Chris Jones, I can speak from personal experience as far as like the nickel. Teams always look at him. They're always sending the line his way. They're always trying to get 2 guys on him. He's a factor, run game, pass game. So he's always going to account for 2 guys. So it leaves a lot of open holes for other guys to make plays, and also leaves chances for kind of like the end of the game when you seen the whole line slide toward Chris and Shamari came free on the blitz. Little stuff like that stats don't show and people don't always talk about, but it's so huge when it comes to the whole team and the 11 out there, just being able to just take pressure off other guys that they can make plays.
Trent,
Couple more.
In your second year last year, you took off, right?
Yeah.
Shamari's in his second year. You mentioned him a little bit.
Mhm.
Talk about his trajectory and how he's been playing.
Yeah, I mean, you see it when he's in there at nickel. It's not easy, especially someone who came in as a safety. You know, he has to come down and play all these fast guys and read and run, read pass, and play man-to-man. But he's one of those guys that just keeps stacking days. And I always talk about just be as consistent as you can be. And he's one of those guys all the way from last year. I mean, he didn't play a lot of nickel. He jumped in a lot in the end of the season. And it wasn't perfect at the beginning, but he just continued to ask the right questions. He's always talking to me, what do you see here? What should I do here? And the best part I love about Shamari is he's 100% whenever he's on the field. You know, you always see max effort, great tackles, and he's just one of those guys that you want on the field because he's always around the ball and always making plays.
In your early study here, what have you seen from Drake London and what he can do?
Yeah, I actually played Drake when he was at SC when I was in college, so kind of know a little bit about him. He's a California guy, but big dude, you know, really good hands. He's really good at boxing DBs out when he can, and definitely a threat. You know, pass game, he can get down the field, he can stretch the field, red zone guy, but I think he's also really good in the run game. He can block really well. They like to run the ball to him a lot, so definitely one of those guys that if you let him just sneak in there, he can make a lot of plays on you.
Last one, anyone? Okay, thanks, Trent.
Appreciate y'all.
All right, there's Trent McDuffie, and wrapping up the press conferences. Should let you know that the quarterback press conference, Patrick Mahomes, brought to you by Xfinity X1. Easily search across live TV, on-demand, sports, and your favorite streaming apps to find the best way to watch what you love. Xfinity X1, brought to you by Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, the only Volvo dealership in Kansas City where luxury and safety meet. Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park at 78th and Metcalf, or at premiervolvocarsoverlandpark.com. And brought to you by GEHA. You could be on the 50 at GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Enter to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA, the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. We take a timeout. We come back, continue rolling, talk about what we heard from the press conference next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
break down a little bit what we heard from the press conference, and then we'll take a timeout and come back and talk with Braden Gall some college football. A lot of talk about Kareem Hunt, obviously. I thought Steve Wall's question about Terrell Owens was interesting. And I guess I remember the timeline being much shorter for T.O. after surgery, but it ended up being 7 weeks from surgery to the Super Bowl. And so if we're saying like, oh, well, surgery, we'll see. It might be like 6 to 8 weeks for Pacheco after surgery. And Andy Reid did not give that timeline, by the way. That was just thrown out, a couple days ago.
Sure.
When he'll have surgery. The real timeline will be determined after surgery, but it could be, 6 to 8 weeks with that, which, if you're looking at that particular, it puts you, if you missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it'd be the Denver Broncos game on November 10th if it was the same time frame as Terrell Owens. But didn't it feel like this is beyond human that Terrell Owens is able to play in the Super Bowl? Like this quick after surgery to repair and put a screw in his fibula. That was 7 weeks. It wasn't like, it felt like it was like, how did he return to play so quickly? And now we're talking about Isaiah Pacheco returning. And by the way, I tweeted about it because it stood out to me when Andy Reid talked about Pacheco and surgery, and there's no timetable. We'll just see when he returns, whether it's this season or next season. Andy, who said anything about next season?
Yeah.
Hold on. Because if it was not, if there was no chance of him missing the season, Andy Reid doesn't say we'll see if it's this season or next season. He doesn't say that unless there's whether that is on the low end, whether that is on the worst case scenario, right? Best case scenario is this. Worst case scenario is this. Best case scenario, you could be T.O. Could be back by November 10th. Worst case scenario, we'll see you next September. We'll see you, in 2025.
Or if you meant this year or next year, is in 20.
He said next season, though.
Yeah, that's true.
He said no. He didn't say this year.
January.
Next year. He didn't play the whole. He didn't play the whole December 31st. See you next year, guys.
Yeah.
He didn't do that thing, but this season or next season certainly stood out.
Yeah.
For him saying that.
Agreed.
That's one of the tweets that probably said, "Yikes!" I'm like, my reaction too. My reaction too is yikes. So we'll see, but we'll see what they do with Kareem Hunt and what he's going to look like. He said there is a chance he plays in Atlanta. I doubt it. They elevated Keontae Ingram, so they've got 3 running backs right now. So I doubt that Kareem Hunt plays this weekend. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk some college football. Braden Gall will get his thoughts on the local teams and a couple of big games coming up this weekend. More Zone right after this. College Football Insider Braden Gall, 440 Sports Podcast Network, and Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio, joining us here in the zone on a Wednesday. Braden, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are we today?
We are doing just fine. Looking forward to another weekend of college football, certainly for the local teams. K-State, KU, and Mizzou, both in the top 15. KU, a rough couple of weeks. We'll get your thoughts on K-State, BYU here in a little bit, and what Mizzou looked like against BC, getting ready for Vandy before the bye week. But let's start with KU, the tougher start to the season, certainly than I thought. I thought they would take care of business against UNLV. I thought it was a trap game before the season started, but losing to Illinois, thought they would bounce back and win that game. They're now 1-2. What are you seeing from KU, and what's the concern level for this team as they now get their Big 12 season underway on the road against West Virginia?
Yeah, it's tough to watch the quarterback not look like himself, and I don't know what to tie that to. Look, he didn't play very much obviously last year, but the same amount of attempts, and he's 20 points below from an efficiency standpoint. So, is that tied to the coordinator being in Penn State? Maybe. Is that tied to supporting cast? Hard to argue that. There's maybe an offensive lineman or two you're missing in a pretty big way. I think the other half of this equation is Illinois is better than we expected, UNLV better than we expected. So those are two you sort of have to say, all right, they're on scholarship too. But it does come back to running the offense, executing the offense efficiently, and he just doesn't look like the same player. I don't know what you guys have seen. You're around the program a lot more closely than I am. But to me, it sort of starts and ends with the quarterback, because while I can say Illinois has improved, and that's a tough game, and that UNLV is right now like the story of the G5 almost, outside of maybe Memphis, those are great stories. You can say that, and that's important context. But at the end of the day, those are not the things that should be slowing down a player of this caliber. So
yeah, the issue, and I don't know, like, is it an issue? Is it something that'll keep going on? Like, how do we assess a guy whose interceptions are just mistakes and bad reads and maybe trying to force something, versus a guy whose interception was you threw it over the guy's head right into the arms of the safety, but the guy was there? Yeah. Because the interceptions for Jalen Daniels have been, that's a pretty bad decision. That's what are you doing? Why would you throw that there? As opposed to, oh my God, that was so inaccurate. He just airmailed that thing right into the arms of the safety. Yep. Is there one in your mind that's better than the other? Because, maybe decision-making is easier correctable than accuracy, but decision-making is a big part of playing quarterback.
So I would agree with your basic point, which is that decision-making should be more easily correctable than accuracy. Accuracy is one of those things that you kind of just have it or you don't. You can adjust like a few percentage points by a lot of work, changing your scheme, making better reads. But by and large, if you stand, 5 quarterbacks up in the same exact spot on the field and you put a trash can, there's going to be one guy who's just more accurate than the others, or one guy who's just less accurate than the others. Drew Brees is a 72% completion guy, and Will Levis is not. So it doesn't have anything to do with accuracy. It doesn't have anything to do with arm strength or processing, which is the decision-making. So I do think accuracy is harder to fix. But what can happen, and I'm in Nashville, I've been covering the Titans, and Will Levis' 2 decisions the last 2 weeks are mind-boggling. And so he's talking a lot about having to rewire his brain to sort of coach those things out of him. He didn't have that last year. So I'm curious if this is happening with Daniels, is that, are you just, how golfers get into funks or a pitcher gets the yips? I'm just curious if that's the type of stuff that can snowball for a quarterback. Again, 300 pass attempts the last 2 seasons, less interceptions than he's got this year in 3 games and 70 attempts. So something is off. And if you package it with the coordinator moving on and losing a couple of offensive linemen, you can kind of come up with, all right, he's going to have a couple of bad games. Remember, keep in mind, this is also important to remember, just 3 weeks, just 3 games, two pretty solid teams. One's ranked and one's the G5 darling. Shouldn't have happened. They probably should have won the Illinois game. You probably could have won last week's game. You can kind of clear your throat on this and then go remember Oklahoma State last year? And they lose to South Alabama, go on and play in the Big 12 championship game. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Kansas, but it is probably a little too early to write the entire script for the season. But so far, I mean, as someone who kind of roots for Lance Leipold and Jalen Daniels in the program, it's hard to watch, and it's disappointing if you had expectations as high as maybe we did at Athlon or I did personally, which is, I had this team in the top 3 or 4 in the Big 12, and that doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but all the big games are still on the schedule. So
I do wonder how much there's an aggressive mindset for Jalen Daniels instead of sort of just in the moment playing the game of what's the smart thing to do here, what's the too aggressive thing to do, because a couple of those interceptions felt forced on third down where if I don't complete this, we're going to punt the ball, which, last year when the Chiefs lost to the Raiders, we heard Patrick Mahomes say something that was like, blaspheme coming out of his mouth when he said it's okay to punt the ball. Like, who are you? who is it? And they ended up winning a Super Bowl with Mahomes changing his mindset of we're a defensive team. We need to play more ball control. It's okay to punt the ball. And they won a Super Bowl. And I looked at the numbers because Lance Leipold brought this up on Monday in his press conference, and Hawk Talks tonight at 6 o'clock right here on Sports Radio 810. But he said, eliminate turnovers, which is, I made the joke that, why am I in prison? What about all the days that I didn't commit crimes? You guys are ignoring those.
Right.
But he's like, those turnovers that have killed us, they have had 12 drives in the last 2 weeks, 12 drives without a turnover, Braden, and they've scored 37 points on those 12 drives. The 6 drives that they've had turnovers on, the defense has then given up 20 points worth of that. So you're talking about 3.5 points per drive for you when you don't turn the ball over versus when the other team gets a turnover, they're averaging, 4 points per drive. And these 2 games is total of 9 points that you lost. And they've punted 5 times. 3 of those punts have resulted in the defense getting a 3 and out and the ball right back to KU. So I do wonder if there's an element of whether it's Grimes or Zabrowski or Lance Leipold of, look, we got to change our mindset, man. Third down, we can't be that aggressive. It's okay to punt. Let your defense do some of the work because they've been out there. And look what happens when we protect the football. We scored 37 points in 12 drives, and our defense is getting shredded when we turn the ball over.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to phrase it, which is sort of like be excited about the boring is kind of a way to talk about it, where like if the defense is giving you the 3-yard check down to the back, you got to take it. And then the great quarterbacks in any level of football are the ones who are satisfied with the mundane. And this is what you're talking about with Mahomes last year, and it's just like I saw Aaron Rodgers do it last weekend at Nissan Stadium. Like, didn't have a huge day, didn't make a bunch of big plays, but he didn't make a single mistake. He took what the defense gave him, and he put his team in a position to win when he had the chance to make a couple of big throws in the fourth quarter. That's all you're looking for from a player like Daniels. It's just like, look, just don't beat us in this situation. Keep us in the game. Make smart decisions. Don't force it. Live to fight another day, cliche, but that gives you a chance to win, and it does, especially in a close game in which both Illinois and UNLV, like I said now multiple times, those are better teams than we expected. I think UNLV, we like to your point, circled as a trap game for sure, but like those are teams that Kansas is probably more talented than, and so if you are willing to wait them out with safe and smart and efficient football, eventually you're going to win those games. So, again, it's not all on one guy. There's a lot of factors here, but certainly an alarming trend to start the year. I don't bury teams until like week 6 or 7. So we got to wait. We got a ways to go.
What do we know about West Virginia? They lost by a pretty decent margin to Penn State. They lost a close one in the backyard brawl there in Pittsburgh. And now KU coming to town. I don't know if West Virginia gets lost in the 1-2 record for KU. And I don't know what maybe there's a history of the loser of the backyard brawl the week after, struggles. Marty Schottenheimer was dominant in his time here in Kansas City against the Raiders. The week after the Raiders, not so much. It was one of those things. But so I don't know if there's something that goes into the backyard brawl being last week, KU going there, if there's some sort of an advantage there. But certainly KU is playing desperate football, I believe, this weekend.
Yeah, I think look, both teams, preseason expectations, both teams 1-2, loser goes 1-3, big hole to dig out of. So for both programs, and I think they're in different situations from a coaching standpoint. Obviously, Neil Brown sort of saving his career and his job last year with a very, with a much better performance than expected. The schedule this year was really hard, so I don't think Big 12 competition was in the cards for them, but certainly better than what they looked like. To your point about the week after, if it had been a regular backyard brawl, which is already difficult, I think we could have a conversation about what happens. But this one is even more concerning if I'm West Virginia, which is obviously a positive for Kansas. Like, those moments where you choke the way they did, 4 minutes up by 10 to give up 2 scores to your arch rival and lose like that can truly damage you. And so ultimately the other side of that coin is it can truly motivate you. And so the question is, to your point, are you as focused on a 1-2 Kansas team as you were last week? No. And what does the fact that you failed so miserably do to your performance this week? I just don't think we know. We're going to talk about this, I'm assuming, with Tennessee and Oklahoma. All the off-the-field stuff, it kind of cuts 2 different ways for those programs. And what I mean by that is, like, the first game in the SEC doesn't mean anything to Tennessee, but it means something to Oklahoma. Playing for your head coach and his return to face his alma mater means something for Tennessee. It doesn't mean anything for those players at Oklahoma who've never heard of Josh Heupel. So, you can see the 2 different psychological elements there, right? Like, both teams are desperate in this West Virginia-Kansas game. You can see why both teams should be motivated. You would assume that you'd be motivated after choking away a victory over an arch rival, but you could also see it crippling you as well. And so, to me, again, Kansas is the better football team and has the best player. And if they can go out and play smart football, I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas wins. But then again, I thought they would win last week too, so don't listen to me.
Yeah, me too. Braden Gall, owner of the 440 Sports Podcast Network, the also Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio. Let's talk K-State and BYU. K-State with a dominant performance against Arizona. I thought it would be a closer game. K-State would win, but that was certainly not the case. K-State winning was the case, but the closer game was not. T-Mac still had his 140 yards receiving on 11 receptions, but a dominant performance from K-State. What did you see from the Cats, and is there, anything more to glean from, that was Arizona's not first Big 12 game, but Big 12 opponent in the Big 12, without it being a conference game, and K-State just simply handled business, looked like the better team, more physical team for 4 quarters.
Yeah, and I think one of the we've gotten a lot wrong together already this year together, but
it's only
I think
2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're good.
I think we were spot on this one, which is Arizona doesn't have a whole lot outside of the connection at quarterback and receiver on offense. They're not a particularly great team on defense, and Kansas State was able to exploit all of that. And I think the more complete, there's very few programs in America right now that I feel more comfortable with plug and play than I do with Kansas State. And we're seeing that. I think the last remaining piece of this, and this is what's interesting because we've already talked about Kansas slipping up. We've already seen plenty of teams slip up around the country and have a loss on their resume while trying to find their identity and figure things out, especially young quarterbacks. The fact that they can beat teams Kansas State can. I mean, you figured out a way and survived the Tulane thing. You dominate Arizona, and your quarterback still hasn't hit the marks that I expected for him. So, if Avery Johnson's got another tier to his game, which I assume he does as a very young player in his first season as a starter, that's what's really scary if I'm playing Kansas State, let's say in the month of November. And so if they can get through a lot of these hurdles without losing any games or maybe losing one along the way, all of a sudden you could look up and allow the quarterback to develop over the course of the year because he's still playing like a guy who's in his 3rd start. So, or I guess if you count the bowl game, 4. So that to me is very promising for Kansas State. I had Kansas State beating Utah in the championship game because there's very few teams in this conference that are organized and designed in a way that can line up and play Utah's game. And I think Kansas State can do that, and that's why I like them. So I feel even more comfortable with that now. Kansas State over Utah is my pick, so I'm kind of sticking with that. BYU I think is a really nice, interesting challenge for them. Defensively, this team has been lights out through 3 weeks, granted against albeit mediocre competition. But the defensive performance, you give up 260 yards and less than 4 yards of play to SMU. That's pretty impressive. So on the road, so I think there's a lot to like about BYU's defense, and then looking at the sort of the age, the maturity, the physicality of a BYU team that you're going to get. That's a really good matchup for Kansas State, and meaning it's going to test them in areas that Arizona did not. And so you keep learning about your team, finding your identity, especially as your young quarterback develops. I like Kansas State to win, but I think learning how to win all these different types of games against different types of teams is going to benefit them in the long run. I really like this Kansas State team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking about when the show started, we're just sort of previewing some college football stuff, and I'm like, this line has dropped a half point towards BYU, and it's like I almost feel like there's a principal bet here for me that if like Vegas is saying, no, put some money on K-State. Come on. No. They just dominated a top 25 team in Arizona. BYU, not traditionally the team that, it's they're 3-0, but they've played some, lackluster opponents. Come on, it's put some money on K-State. That line's going the other way. And I'm like, man, it kind of feels like a principal. I got to bet on BYU just on principle alone.
Yep.
But man, I really like this matchup for K-State. They just continue to impress me, and it's, I just don't. The one thing that I expect out of K-State week in and week out is that they won't hurt them. They won't beat themselves on the field.
Yep.
They're just so well coached that the other team is going to have to beat them. They're going to do very few favors for the opponent.
Yeah, and I agree with your betting conversation. If you look at a line and you're like, that makes no sense, and your instinct is to immediately jump on Team A, you probably should bet on Team B, because what Vegas wants you to do is to instinctually jump on Team A. So I technically agree with you here. If you're 6.5 points, take that home number. But I think what BYU can do is sort of, because they want to play a similar style, they can play that sort of ugly, muck it up, dirty game where all of a sudden it's and Kansas State's very accustomed to that, which is why I think it's a good test for them, coming off of a totally different style of a game the week before. So I think it's all good for the team. I think they win. To your point, would I take BYU plus 6.5? Probably. And just say, look, they're back. There's a backdoor cover there, or there's a one-score win. We've seen that from Kansas State over the years, under any coach that they've had, where they play their game and it ends up being a win, but it's not a blowout. So BYU, look, they're a mature team. They can handle their business. Their offense has been pretty solid. Retzlaff's been putting up some numbers. So we'll see. But I like Kansas State to win a close, ugly football game. Low scoring, maybe take the under. What
do you make of the Mizzou-BC game? Because Mizzou wins by 6. I thought they would cover because simply Eli Drinkwitz has been trying to cover. I mean, they fall behind 7-0, a fourth down conversion, a longer third down conversion on that first drive. They score a touchdown. Then Mizzou goes on a 24- after the broken play, the Reed Harris touchdown, Mizzou goes on a 24-0 run to be up 27-14. And then there's another play where there's broken coverage and it's 27-21. I don't know what to make of this because it's a 6-point victory. BC's a fine team. 2 of their touchdowns were on sort of broken plays that resulted in longer scores. But also Castellanos is one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the country through 3 weeks of the season. I know it's a good win, but sort of juggling is if this is a positive or is it a negative, or was it a 6-point game because of a couple of mistakes that this thing could have been 3 touchdowns? Just assessing this game, getting ready for Vandy is I don't know what to make of what Mizzou did against BC.
I think you assessed it pretty well. I think it's a good win. It's not a great win. It's not an elite win. It's not an elite competition. You didn't play a perfect game. But I think at the end of the day, it's a ranked BC team that's clearly improved with a solid quarterback in your first real test of the year. And a couple of things, strange football things happened, which is fun when college football happens.
Yeah.
And you still found a way to largely be in control of the entire second half. The offensive weaponry took over in the second half, which is what you want to see in this kind of game. You want to see that, our receiver quarterback combination is just because it's supposedly one of the best, if not the best in the country. We're just able to lean on them when we need to. So I think that, the defensive statistics were off the charts coming into the game. I didn't expect them to maintain the exact level, but again, less than 2 yards to carry, less than 50 yards rushing, a couple of interceptions for Castellanos. I think you've done your job in this game, and you just go, all right, good win, solid, not a bad win, not a great win, just a good solid win. Good showing. Let's get ready for conference play.
Yep, and they got Vandy this weekend, 3:15 SEC Network. Last one for you real quick. Which game are you most looking forward to watching, Utah, Oklahoma State, or Tennessee, Oklahoma?
I mean, I'm a Tennessee alumni, so it's definitely that's not a fair question to me. But, I am fascinated by Utah and Oklahoma State just in general, especially Ollie Gordon, the running game, a little bit slower starting this year, but very talented against that Utah defensive front. Always fun to watch strength on strength. And, of course, the AARP quarterback battle of the year. Going to be. I'm not sure which one's on Social Security. Maybe both. I'm not sure. But it's going to be a fun game. Just veteran quarterbacks with good physical lines of scrimmage play. That's kind of my style of football. If you want the flash and you want the fun, it is Oklahoma and Tennessee. Now, on paper, nothing Oklahoma has shown me so far through 3 weeks tells me that they are competitive with Tennessee's line of scrimmage. But college football. And so offensive line, defensive line, I think Oklahoma's defensive front and Brent Venables is probably going to have some interesting design scheme elements, whether they're stunts, whether they're blitzes, whether they're, all out, whether we're going zero blitz, whether we're going, complete shell coverage. I don't know, but I imagine Brent Venables has a plan for Nico and what it's going to look like. That's going to be creative and fun to watch because that running game for Tennessee has been dominant. On the other side, I don't know what Oklahoma is going to do. And if I'm Jackson Arnold, I probably have not slept much this week. That defensive line for Tennessee goes 8, 9, 10 deep. They've got the number 1 pick in the draft, maybe, in James Pierce. Like, they are extremely good. And so getting after him against an offensive line that still looks like it has replaced all 5 starters in the offseason, that's a concern for me if I'm Oklahoma. So I think paper tells you that Tennessee is the better football team. They are surging into what could be a very special year with a truly special quarterback, a special defensive line, a system on offense that has got a really high floor. And Oklahoma doesn't really have a lot of that other than what appears to be a very talented quarterback. So I just think Tennessee's kind of just better at all the important spots. They're better along the offensive line. Their defensive line is just better. Their quarterback prospect, quote unquote, is just better. The coaching offensive staff is just better. I think they're just a little bit better. And I think it's going to be great. I was at the Baker Mayfield. I was on the sideline for the Baker Mayfield comeback in Neyland Stadium in 2017, and it was one of the most spectacular just sort of environments I've ever been at, and still remember it today. And I imagine Norman's going to be pretty jacked up for this one, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
First SEC game. Braden Gall, owner of the 440 Sports Podcast Network, Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio as well. Braden, you're the man as always. Really appreciate the time, brother. Enjoy the football. We'll talk next week.
Yep, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. There's Braden Gall. I think it's going to be an Oklahoma split this weekend. I think Oklahoma State takes care of business at home against Utah, and I think Oklahoma gets beat by Tennessee at home by the Vols. So we'll see what ends up happening. We need to take a break. We will come back, continue rolling. Mick Schaefer will join us in the 1 o'clock hour. More Zone next. All right, run a little behind after the press conferences. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. KSHB 41 sports director. Get his thoughts on some college football. Big one for Peter Polk coming up this weekend against Utah. What's that? That's right, picking a poke, yes. The winner of this game actually gets an all-expense-paid trip to Europe. So, very excited about that. But some big college football games coming up. A few top 25 matchups. Notre Dame, USC, and Tennessee, Oklahoma. Should be a fun one. And KU and West Virginia, both 1-2 teams, desperately trying to not start 1-3 and 0-1 in conference. We'll talk some college football. We'll talk a little NFL football, some Major League Baseball, and more with Mick Schaefer. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, hanging out with us on this Wednesday. NFL Network's replaying Chiefs and Bengals from this weekend if you want to rewatch that one. I don't, actually. I don't want to rewatch that one at all. The Chiefs just had a great stand.
The win was the only good part about that.
Yeah, it was a great part. Winning that game, being 2-0 is awesome. But a 2-0 stand, a goal line stand, first and goal, I should say, for the Bengals, and the Chiefs get a stop, and now the Bengals are going to settle for 3. Thankfully, they are going to just kick the field goal. The Chiefs wouldn't do that. If the Chiefs are in position, they'll probably go for it.
What went well? Pacheco, bad injury. Mahomes, lowest yardage of his career. Travis Kelce, where you go?
Generic tight ends catching 100 yards worth of passes. You know,
the interior offensive line.
Chris Jones.
Was it? I don't know.
Chris Jones. He was pretty dominant in the second half. Chris Jones.
Was he? Yeah.
Chris Jones.
Chris Jones. Dominant in the second half. There we go. Nailed it.
Oh, Trent McDuffie. What are we doing? Trent
Trent
McDuffie and Harrison Butker.
Uh-huh. Those two. You're right.
Also, I do think it's interesting.
Leo Chenal was great again, too.
The announcers were great. I appreciate Romo more now after listening to 2 days and 2 games of Tom Brady.
Nope, they were not.
What'd they do?
Believe me, going through Sad Fans, which will play on Friday. Going through Sad Fans, it's Romo might be the worst broadcaster in the history of the league, and the only reason he was doing that game is because Patrick Mahomes was in it. And you can hear how
that part might be true, actually.
You could hear how disappointed Tony Romo was anytime the Bengals had a positive play. You could hear it in his voice. At least that's what Reddit.
Stand corrected.
That's what Reddit was telling me. So you're wrong.
Tony does love Mahomes, though. I will grant that. And it's awesome to listen to.
Oh, he loves Jamar Chase. He gets to say Chase is on the case all the time. He loves Jamar Chase. So you know, he likes them all. You know.
So that would be how many times you've watched it? Which replay would this be for you?
Well, this would be the full replay for me. The condensed replay was the second time, but I'm not going to fully watch the game.
What's the condensed replay?
Oh, on NFL Plus, NFL Premium, they
got
got
the
like.
So 30, it's not every play, or just the highlights. Oh, it's every play. Okay,
every play. Bing, bing.
Because YouTube's they've got the the highlights, right? They'll give you 30 plays of each game, whatever.
This is about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the game, and it's just the plays.
Yeah.
Now, some bigger plays like turnovers, like they'll show a replay of the scoop and score, even in the condensed version, because that's a pretty big play. Things like that. They'll show the replay of the Cam Taylor-Britt, interception. But there are very few replays, and it's the play's over. Boom, it's going right to the line of scrimmage to snap the ball next. It's a great way to rewatch a game if you're not wanting to just sit there. It's also amazing to think that the 3 hours and 20 minutes we sit there watching a game, that it's really 32 minutes.
That's it.
Of the actual action
if
in the
that.
game.
If that.
It's,
Big 12 used to do a no huddle, which was great. They would condense every game down into an hour. And it was basically they cut out the time between the plays, and you saw the game without the riffraff.
And that was saving you 4 hours worth.
It was.
Only 1 hour to watch a college football game?
What
am I going to do with the other 4 hours of my life?
That LSU South Carolina game was like 5 hours.
Dude, we were at a wedding, and from before the wedding started till then, all of a sudden the reception had started, and the game was somehow still going on.
It was infringing upon halftime of the 2 o'clock window.
Mizzou started at 11:45. They started at 11. Mizzou got over before them.
Quicker. Yep.
but well quicker. It wasn't close.
11, but they sort of 45.
And there were 47
minutes
points scored in that game, in the Mizzou game. It's not like it was just a
45-minute head start. And that thing still went that long, which is why it's like, this weekend when you got the back-to-back games of the Utah-Oklahoma State at 3 o'clock, and then followed by Tennessee and Oklahoma at 6:30, or no, 6 o'clock. Or 6:15, something like that. Either way, there's going to be a little bit of crossover. Like, it's going to kind of be back-to-back. There'll be just a small little crossover, depending on how if Utah and Oklahoma State's like LSU, South Carolina, then we'll catch Tennessee and Oklahoma in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But there should be almost like a direct handoff.
How has the NFL gotten so good at just consistently knowing how long the game's going to be? Just everything.
Halftimes.
I get that. But
that's the biggest thing. I mean, they're 12 minutes now, 13 now. They used to be just 10.
How long is college football?
It could be half. Are you having homecoming? Could be half an hour.
Is the band playing? The band.
Are you doing a Hall of Fame ceremony?
That's right. Yeah.
Could be half an hour.
Yeah. Sort of.
And then the rules are getting closer with out of bounds and stopping the clock at the first downs and everything. But back in the day, you got a first down. Now this is maybe back before you were born. You got a first down in college football. The clock stopped. and stayed stopped until you snapped the ball. Now, back then, there wasn't as much ad time. The commercial breaks weren't as long, so they made up for it there. But college football has always been long. And I've never complained. It's fun. It's funny. Some sports are like, if a baseball game's going long, I will feel it. And I'm like, okay. Especially last time, like, okay, I know what's going to happen. Just get this thing over with. And basketball even sometimes, too. I'm like, God, this game's dragging on.
Well, it's really
but
the last 3 minutes of
football,
basketball.
I'm always like, it's been 4:15. That's fine. I'm good with that.
Let's go.
Let's keep playing. Let's go.
The beers are keep getting cracked, right? Because
Well, I
football,
drink
you're allowed
beer
to.
at other sports, too.
Yeah.
You're allowed to drink for whatever sport you're watching. I mean, I have to check with my local codes, and Kansas and Missouri aren't they're different
I
states.
tweet
but
you
yeah.
every single time. I
They
tweet
do have
Mick
different
Schaefer.
rules. So
Maybe for gambling.
on the Kansas
you
side, you
cannot
can only
wa-
drink during football games. Actually, Missouri side's
Yeah.
football games.
Yeah.
Kansas side is you can only drink during soccer games. You
Yeah.
can't drink during baseball and football games. Only soccer games that you can do that. I've also noticed, too, that in an effort for college football to speed up the game a little bit, like the first down is supposed to stop the clock until the chains is set and the ball is set.
Yeah.
The clock is now running while the guy is
is.
still running to set the ball. Like the clock is supposed to stop and the offense is up there ready to snap it, and the clock is now running and the ball hasn't been spotted yet. And it's like, hold on, that's not the spirit of the rule. It's supposed to stop.
I've noticed that too. I just imagine they had changed it until maybe 4 minutes left in the game or something like that.
Changed it
Well, the
just like,
40-second clock has really changed things.
But
to
I mean,
where
in the last minute of the game, like there was somebody that was playing over the weekend.
It's college football. There's a chance they just screwed it up.
Yeah. No, I was watching over the weekend, and there was like 20 seconds left or something, and they got a first down, and this sideline guy's running the ball, and all of a sudden it goes 19, 18, 7. It was 16 before he set the ball down. I'm like, they just lost 4 seconds. In fact, it might have been the Mizzou game before halftime when they kicked the field goal.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was that. I think it was the Mizzou game. I'm like, hold on. The clock is running, and the ball isn't even spotted yet. What is going on here? But, yeah, I think it's an effort to, hey, the chains are set. Doesn't matter where the ball is. Chains are set. Go. We stopped the ball to set the chains. That's it. We said nothing about the ball being spotted, apparently. I don't know. But I've noticed that more, and now you've got the 2-minute timeout. Not a warning. They are not warning you about anything. It's just a timeout. There's no warning that, hey, there's only 2 minutes left. There's no Miami PA announcer. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Dos.
And I think to answer your question, Sterling, the better you are at football, obviously, the fewer mistakes you'll make to where like there are way fewer possessions in an NFL game than there are in a college game. You'll get, teams will have 12, 13 possessions apiece in college football. It might be 8 or 9 a lot of times in these NFL games to where like clock's just moving a lot more.
I'm trying to see how many they had in this. Chiefs had 9. Chiefs had 9 possessions in that game against the Bengals.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, no, so you gotta take advantage of the possessions that you have, and it's more the NFL. You've got that 3 to 3:15 hour window, 3 hours, 15 minutes, depending on what it is. It's like the Chiefs start at noon. I know about 3:15, I'll be done. Chiefs start at 3:25. I know about 6:45, I'll be done. And unless there's an overtime or something like that. So, yeah, but we'll see what happens with Utah and Oklahoma State. I think it's going to be an Oklahoma split.
We will see what happens.
I think Oklahoma State's going to win. I think
I
Oklahoma's
love
gonna
that.
lose.
I love that Oklahoma split. That's better than the Tonganoxie split. It's the best split I've heard in a long time.
What if it's the exact opposite split?
That's
Would
a
you like
bad
that one?
split.
That's a
Then
bad
it's
split,
pretty
yeah.
easy.
Yeah, this is an easy one to tell what's a good or bad split.
I think it's a much better chance at an 0-2 Oklahoma team Saturday than it is a 1-1. I think I really like Tennessee. Oklahoma, I've watched all the games and not look great at all. Hopefully Tennessee comes through. But yeah, Oklahoma State playing at home against. I think they both can rent cars. Alan Bowman and Cam Rising.
Yes,
it's funny. They said that maybe Bowman might still be 24 because they said the combined age of the two. 49.
49, yes.
And then
it's 24 and 25.
And then the combined age of the two quarterbacks in the Colts-Bears game, 20. It was 44. I think it's 44. Yeah, it's with Williams and Anthony Richardson.
Amazing. Oh my goodness, man! And if you throw in Keaton Allen from the Jets, who's only 20 years old, he's out there.
How about Carson Steele, who just turned 21 this calendar year?
You got the kid from Miami who's in his 9th year catching a touchdown in the week 1, and you've got Allen for the Jets who can't even drink yet, who's 20 years old.
Have we? We see guys that are 3 years from the graduating class enter the NFL all the time, even in this post-COVID era and this NIL era, and you can transfer and you can stay in college as long as you want. We still see it. But those are first-round picks. How often have we seen a 3-year guy go to the NFL, be undrafted, and make a roster? Is there anybody bet on himself more than Carson Steele and hit?
Who's
better?
Undrafted to the starting running back for the back-to-back Super Bowl champs by week 3.
By week 3.
Week 3. And he was, by the way, when
he graduated high school
Green
in 2020.
When OTAs and minicamp were after rookie minicamp.
No, 2021. He graduated high school in 2021.
When after rookie minicamp, when OTAs and minicamp were going on with the entire team, Carson Steele was taking reps behind Louis Rees-Zammit.
Yes, he was.
And Imani Bailey. Those guys were ahead of Carson Steele in getting reps in the OTAs and minicamp. He's now going to be taking a handoff in the first quarter of week 3 with Pacheco on the shelf and Carson Steele.
Unbelievable.
I think will be the starter, although it wouldn't put it. I wouldn't be surprised if Pirine comes out there as being a veteran guy.
And what are we thinking as for Hunt? How long he'll stay on that practice squad?
I think he'll play next week.
Yeah,
I think it's too quick. I don't think he's going to play.
I don't think it'll be this week.
I think he'll play next week.
I think next is the time. But these guys will get up to speed quick enough. They're not going to sign him if it's going to take him a month to get going.
And Andy said that all of the basics, the original installs, those are all the same. He said the route verbiage and concepts are a little different. But he goes, but we're not splitting them out wide. So he's got some of the interior stuff. He'll be fine. But I think more in L.A. for Kareem Hunt. And I think it also is interesting that he talked because we've wondered what they're going to get from Kareem Hunt. And if you looked at rushing yards over expected, he's been in the negative last year. He was like negative 0.8 or negative 1 in rushing yards.
He hasn't gone over 500 yards for like 4 years.
Yeah, he's only had 1,000-yard rushing.
Now he's missed a lot of games.
That guy's only had. He's so good. He's only had 1 year where he rushed for 1,000 yards. How good can he be?
It's funny. His Pro Football Reference page is starting to look a lot like Josh Gordon. Remember that dynamic year at the beginning of his career that just pops 1,700 rushing yards or whatever. He's got one of those where it's just, okay, that's an outlier.
But we'll see what he looks like. But Andy Reid, and we were wondering about, okay, why did he look 3 yards per carry? He scored touchdowns, but, could it be injuries or whatever? He had hernia surgery in January, Kareem Hunt did, for the ruptured adductor muscle. But throughout the entire, when they signed him, when Nick Chubb went down and they brought Kareem Hunt back, after the first game, the rest of the year, he was on the injury report with a groin injury. And Stefanski said, later on after the hernia surgery that, he's like, Kareem Hunt's, but I had to go back and read this because I wasn't paying much attention to Kareem Hunt in Cleveland at that time and how injured he was. Mm-hmm. So last night, all right, what's going on with this? And Stefanski was like, he's been a warrior. Like, this guy's been, dealing with this groin injury all year long, and still he's going out there every week and he's giving us tough runs and he's scoring touchdowns. And then eventually it just burst in January and had to have hernia surgery. And so you've got Andy Reid that said, look, the guy was injured last year. We worked him out. We saw the burst. We saw the, things that looked like it was before. He's still 29 years old. We'll see what he looks like. Right now, it can be an excuse or a hope that he'll look different than 3 yards per carry because he was battling a groin injury last year. He gets out there and looks the same. Then it's, he was battling a groin, but he's also 28, 29 years old as a running back now. We'll see what he's going to do. But, we'll see him next week, I think, against the Chargers.
Yeah, it's funny. The Chiefs, since he left in, end of 2018, correct?
Yep, 2018.
And he was on his way to a 1,000-yard season that year. He was going to shoot. He's at 800-some yards that year.
He was going to be pacing for almost 1,800 yards from scrimmage and 20 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It was unreal what he was doing.
It was, and so because of that and because of the great year he had in 2017, the Chiefs have been trying to replicate, find a new Kareem Hunt since, and now the latest try, I guess, is just a much older Kareem Hunt.
Every year it's like the running game sucks. Go get Kareem Hunt. You got to bring Kareem Hunt back. How many times have people talked about bringing Kareem Hunt back over the last few years when the Chiefs have had running game issues? Well, maybe you go get Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's out there. Go get Kareem Hunt. Like, no, they're not bringing back Kareem Hunt. Like we've said all along, they're eventually going to bring back Kareem Hunt. It's just not right now, They'll get there. And that was, Andy was asked about, have you had conversations with him about that? He's like, yeah, I saw him at Pat's wedding.
There you go.
Well, that was 2.5 years ago.
And a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I mean, have you talked to him since? Have you had a conversation since about maybe
To
joining
be fair
the
to
Chiefs?
Andy, the older you get,
That was
2.5 years ago seems like last week.
It's like I just talked to him last week at Patrick Mahomes' wedding.
Yeah, those young kids that just got married. Yeah.
It was like March of 22. It was after they won the Super Bowl against the Eagles, right? Yeah, it was after the Eagles. No,
Yeah.
Was it after the Eagles Super Bowl? No, it was after the Bengals loss. So it was after the AFC Championship game. Bengals lost when they got married.
So it would have been 22.
Yeah. So Patrick Mahomes has never not won a Super Bowl as a married man.
Smart.
Yeah, never not working.
It's true.
And he's never not working, too. Never not working and never not won a Super Bowl.
Usually goes the opposite.
Yeah, right?
You know?
I mean, you get married, and it's like, oh, wait till he gets married and has kids. Then he's got other priorities. Oh, yeah? 2 for 2 in Super Bowls with a kid and marriage. All
Well,
right?
with the kid, he still lost one because he had Sterling before that.
Did he have Sterling before that?
Yeah.
I'm right here, guys.
Yeah. Sterling was before the wedding.
Well, that offends me. Sorry. That is true. Yeah, I guess that's right.
Well
yeah.
before it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Now that he's married, he's got a little help with
Yes.
the kids. You know,
Yes.
he's not a single dad.
Yes.
So, it makes sense being a single dad that he wasn't performing as well. Now that he's married and there's a mom in the picture, now he's undefeated in Super Bowls. So good for him. Good for him. All right. Anybody else's personal life we want to get into? Anybody else? Any other Chiefs players we want to talk about or anything like that? Okay. Good. Great. Grand. Wonderful. Maybe it was the hernia. Maybe it was the groin issue that was keeping Kareem Hunt looking generic or less than replacement level last year. But
It probably was. But, I mean, and also, I mean, the older you get, the more miles you get on those tires, the tougher it is to come back from injuries where if you got that, 5 or 10 years ago, you could be able to bounce back and come back closer to 100%.
or also the older you get, the more likely it is you have another soft tissue injury or something else takes place during a game. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. The Royals lost the first 2 games of this Tigers series. It has been rough sledding. They have stranded a small village on the base paths in these last 2 games. They've got the Cy Young Award winner coming up soon. The Cy Young Award winner will be on the mound
How
tonight.
about just
for
all the
Detroit.
Cy Young Award candidates, their teams don't win this series? How about that?
Exactly. I am in
How about
agreement.
that?
Totally. Let's do that. No Cy Young Award candidate has a win for his team the night he starts in these 3 games.
Or just say their team doesn't win because
I meant like the team doesn't win, not him.
Yeah, because
I
that's
meant
still going to
the
happen.
team
anyway.
does not
Yeah.
win on the night he
Yes.
starts. Yeah, that's what I was going for. But let's hope that's not the case. We'll see. Alec Marsh, he's also a future Cy Young Award winner. So now we're confused. You, Sterling Holmes, Mick Schaefer, Dylan Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. And then Sporting KC in action tonight, 7:30 right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We talked with Braden Gall in the noon hour. I know we were talking a little college football in the previous segment and some NFL football. I want to talk some baseball here. But, just talking with him, and I'm interested to hear what Lance Leipold's going to say tonight, because he had mentioned that, Jeff Grimes and Jim Zabrowski may switch spots during the game, that Zabrowski's been up in the booth and Grimes has been down on the sideline, and now they're talking about switching. So Grimes goes up to the booth and Zabrowski comes down. Like, you're searching for stuff at that point. But the thought process behind it is, at least from what Grimes said, is that Zabrowski, being the quarterback's coach and co-OC, is around Daniels all week. So maybe he should be on the sideline with Jalen Daniels while Grimes is upstairs overlooking everything and having more of a controlled environment, quieter, better concentration, rather than maybe the chaos of a sideline that's going on. Although Grimes has called plays from the sideline in his career, 3 games in, maybe there's a change coming from that standpoint.
Anymore, I would think the only thing you're missing out on by going up top is the chaos, to where like they have all the monitors down low immediately. They have the iPads. You have that high view, that 22 view. You have the eye in the sky and all that, to where like, okay, if you want a quieter environment, stay up there. It's always made more sense to me to have if you're gonna have one or the other, have the OC up top, have the DC down low, because the defensive coach thrives on that kind of energy and intensity down there on the sideline. Who did I watch? Was it Purdue, Notre Dame? One of the games this week had both their coaches for one team were up top. Both the coordinators for the other were down low.
That's great.
And it might have been that butt kicking of Notre Dame Purdue. I can't remember though.
Yeah, it's funny, just like what works for some people, what doesn't work for some people.
Do you feel like this is a final move to cover for Jalen Daniels before a switch is potentially made?
Maybe.
Like, this is the last excuse, and they're kind of creating it in the media by making this announcement of, hey, we're doing this switch because the OC...
Well, they haven't even decided they're going to. They're just discussing it. Yeah,
if
but
they
go ahead.
are going to do it, I feel like this is the,
It's interesting because, talking with Braden, I'm like, what's an easier fixable issue with turnovers? Is it inaccurate passes or is it bad decisions? Because Daniels hasn't had a bunch of inaccurate passes. He's been pretty accurate. He hasn't airmailed a couple of throws to where, wow, that went right to the safety over the guy. He's just made bad decisions. Like, when he's not making the bad decisions, he's been pretty accurate. But he's making bad decisions, forcing some things, making some throws that you shouldn't throw, and that's resulted in interceptions. Is it easier to change a mindset there of stop trying to force this or be aggressive there, as opposed to, okay, well, that slant was there and he just threw it 5 yards over his head. So what are we going to do next time?
I think the easier deal is changing the bad decisions. I agree with Braden. I was listening to that interview. I think some guys, man, it's kind of like pitching with your arm. Some guys are born like they can be Nolan Ryan and never have Tommy John, right? And other guys are going to have it 3 times before they graduate college. Some guys are born accurate and others aren't. You can become more accurate, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's more incrementally. I don't think over a span of a year that a guy's going to go from a 60% guy to a 70% guy. I'm just kind of I'm thinking about lately watching guys from high school, like Avery Johnson that's kind of still the knock on him, and he had supposedly improved, but I'm like, I wonder if he'll ever get there. And so, yeah, I would have to think the decision making would be the easier. Not that it's easy, but it's going to be easier than like, okay, get it more accurate.
Yeah.
Because, hey, if you make better decisions, you're essentially throwing it into maybe a bigger window to where it doesn't have to be right on the numbers every time.
Or you're just tucking that ball and
or you're
running.
not throwing. You're not throwing at all.
Or use your legs. That's not there. Tuck it and run. Go do something else. Or live to fight another day.
Yeah.
Or just say, you know what, it's third down. It wasn't there. I'm not going to turn it over.
That's the sad part for both of those games. If he lives to fight another day, if you, what do they say, you in every drive with a kick, whether it's a PAT, a field goal, or a punt, he does that. They're 3-0, I think.
I think so too.
Because the defense has given up yardage, but they've kind of held strong at the end and allowed field goals in both those games. Defense played well enough. I mean, if you're a Power 5 football team and you're allowing in the low 20s, you have visions of being a good team, you should be winning those games.
23 to Illinois.
And one was a pick six in the Illinois game, right?
Yeah. And then 23 to UNLV, who, again, I think UNLV is a pretty good team. The Illinois loss is the one that I think
UNLV is better than Illinois. I mean, what they did to Houston,
I think UNLV is a much better squad. That one is, I think, understandable. That Illinois game, that's the one that really sticks out to me. That
result led to the next result, to where, like, okay, you start doubting yourself, and especially if you're Jalen Daniels, maybe if you get that win, even with those mistakes, you realize, okay, it's easier to correct those things. You have a better feel, better vibe about you, and maybe that parlays into a win over UNLV. Maybe that was one loss led to the other.
So when KU does not turn the ball over, this would include punts too. So drives where they don't turn the ball over, they're averaging 3.1 the last 2 weeks. These two games, they're averaging 3.1 points per drive. So essentially, don't turn it over. You're getting a field goal almost every time, on average. Defensively, when the opposing team starts to drive off a turnover, they are averaging 3.3 yards per drive, or 3.3 points per drive. When KU punts it, the opposing team is averaging 0.5 points per drive. I mean, that's just massive. I mean, it gets to an element where Patrick Mahomes last year after the Raiders game said it's okay to punt the ball. Like, you wash your mouth out.
It was horrible. It was the dumbest thing you ever said. Stop it.
Who do you think you are? You're not
Stop with these 151-yard passing performances.
This is gross.
Give me back to 351 and 4 tutties.
Oh, man, I just feel like really, really gross right now that he's being fined punting the ball. But those numbers are pretty stark in that, don't turn the ball over. Punt is okay, and your defense has a change of possession, not a quick change. They're running out there, getting ready for that drive. Not all right, everybody up, go, get on the field. It's a big it's turnover, fumble, go. And also the pick six certainly helps with the yards per drive.
I just find the start so weird for Jalen Daniels, who in both of his junior seasons, I like putting them together because that's 12 games, right? You put those 2 seasons together, 12 games. 2,700 yards. That would have been 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He already has 6 interceptions in 3 games this season. His completion percentage was 66.1 and 74.7. That's really, really good. This year, 54.9. So I get the injury happened, and it's going to maybe some of the rust, all that stuff, but just the dramatic drop-off from the combination of both his junior years to this season is perplexing to me.
Yeah, it is.
Are we in his senior season, Mike? Is this it? Do we know for sure?
Last year of eligibility. His whole recruiting class. He and Grimm and every other wide receiver on the team, same recruiting class that came in together. So, I mean, was
Jason Bean the better quarterback? Do we know?
I mean, I think there's a lot more. Appreciation.
I mean, first of all, Bean was like
really
100-meter champ in Texas in high school.
Yeah.
He was the fastest dude on the field most of the time. I mean, that guy could burn. There's a reason why he's in the NFL. Or where is he at now?
Indy.
Indy.
Squad.
Yeah.
And he's still quarterback, or is he wide receiver?
Yeah.
If
Anthony Richardson's
because he's got, I mean, he might only have one tool, but, I mean, that tool's pretty good tool. I'm just trying not to say something that's going to get it marked. And, I was going to say pretty impressive.
We wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive what?
He's very fast. He's very fast, what I'm trying to say. Very, very fast. And, like the last 2 years when he came in, I'm like, I don't know if KU is missing a beat here or if they're dropping off at all, which he's certainly had his, his tendencies that weren't always great and his flaws. But I don't think it's outrageous to ask if Jason Bean was better quarterback.
We were at Mod Pizza last Friday in Raymore, and Trucker Tim stopped by, and he was wearing a Luke Grimm jersey because Grimm's from Raymore. So he was, or not jersey, but shirt. It was like the Grimm Reaper on the back, right? I looked at him, I was like, is that a Luke Grimm shirt? He was like, heck yeah. So he texted in. He said, by the way, today. At 7 o'clock this morning, Trucker Tim checking in from Phoenix. And then at 10:15.
So he's a real trucker.
Yeah, Trucker Tim checking in from Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
I told him when he texts in, I want to know where you're at. Because he drives across the country and he listens all day. It's awesome. But he texted in and he said, Just get Grimm the ball. Hey, that's fine. Do what you got to do, man. I love that. There it is. That's how do you solve KU's problem? Get Grimm the ball.
Yeah.
There's no bias for being a Ray Moore kid there from Trucker Tim at all. Not at
When
all.
things are grim, get the ball to Grimm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You'll be able to reap what you sow. By
Be the
getting
Luke
ball.
Grimm Reaper.
Luke Grimm Reaper. Yeah, you could do that. But do you, Mick? The line for K-State and BYU.
Yeah.
Do you have
I'm
the
going to be
same-
the idiot that pounces
you have the same
on
assessment as I
the
do?
Wildcats. Yes.
I just feel like K-State.
Let's do it one time. Let's take the Cougars here.
Is it at BYU?
It's at BYU.
Let's not take the bait.
They also have a weird grass apparently that's like a thicker and harder to move around.
That's it. Nope.
Makes everyone slower.
It's Utah. There's no grass.
But hold on.
They don't believe in any of that type of weird grass there in Utah.
Before last week, though, before we saw the Arizona game, and you would have seen that BYU line, you would have been more like, okay, maybe more like, okay, I don't know which way to go on it, right? Because we just seen what happened with Tulane, and so I believe that Vegas believes that Arizona result was kind of an outlier, kind of fluky, and they believe K-State is more like what they saw at Tulane.
See, I think the Tulane is more of the outlier. And
Could be. You're going to outsmart Vegas. I love it. Let's do it.
Look,
I'm with you. I'll ride.
Are we all three of us?
Team ride.
We're all four of us. We're outsmarting Vegas.
Take the Cats.
Take the Cats minus. It's gone down a point. You get under a touchdown right now. I mean, it's a 6.5 right now. If you pounce on it, if you pounce like a Tiger, or
pounce
a
on like
Wildcat.
a scoop and score, like Kansas State did against Tulane.
Absolutely,
that kind of pounce.
like Shamari Connor did,
Like a
against
Wildcat.
Like a Wildcat.
I missed every one of my NFL bets on Sunday, so I'm ready to do whatever, guys. Let's get weird.
Welcome to the club. Did you have a lot?
I like 5 or 6.
A lot of San Fran.
Rough
Oh
day
my
Sunday.
God.
A lot of Colts over the Packers.
I gotta tell you right now, it was because I looked
think
at
a
my
lot of
account. I'm like, wait, that's lower than what I thought.
Why is it in the negative?
Definitely because I did great with the UFC fights on Saturday, something I know nothing about. I'm like, this felt good.
I didn't ask DraftKings for a marker. Why am I in the negative?
I love that last week for NFL, I go, these are some stupid lines. I'm going to take advantage of these. This is the week to make money.
I bet Vegas killed last week. The Dogs were 11-4-1 against the spread, with a number of plenty of them winning outright.
Yes,
and generally the public does not bet on dogs.
If this tells you how Vegas is going to do this football season, the last game they had last year, obviously the Super Bowl, 75 to 70, I think, % of the money was on the Chiefs, so they lost a lot of money the last time they were giving out wagers on football. So I think this year they're going to get a lot of get back early on too.
Yeah, I mean, usually early in the season, you're like, okay, you can take advantage of this line or that line, and if you were smart enough to not overreact after week 1, then you would have been able to take advantage because I fell into some of the overreactions. I liked the Chiefs minus the points. That was smart.
I lost Broncos plus 2.5. I lost Titans plus 4. Lost.
Malik Willis was starting that game for
Did
Green
I make
Bay.
that
I don't know
Broncos bet
why.
for you or something?
I don't know what time of night on Saturday I bet Panthers plus 5.
That's the only one I hit.
I had a 4-pick parlay that I got like one leg right. I think of I got one leg right of moneyline Jets, Eagles, Lions, and Chiefs, and I almost got the Chiefs wrong.
Dude, I did a money line parlay.
Chiefs minus 6, got that wrong.
Money line parlay. Thought I'd just quickly double my money. 3-leg money line parlay at plus 100. Quick little double my money. Ravens, Lions, and Chiefs just to win outright. Boom. Quick little double. Hey, there, $10. Give me
Lucky
20
to
back.
get one
All
right.
right. I got one right. I got one right on the last play of the game. It's easy to bet, guys. It's easy.
Come do it.
The Vegas is dumb. They're stupid. This is like an ATM what we're doing right now.
That's Reese Davis.
I'm
Reese
taking
Davis
BYU.
has,
I'm
great
taking
take on
BYU.
gambling.
Taking BYU.
I'm going to take the Cats. I'm taking the Cats, and I think KU's going
I'm
to
taking the
bounce back.
Cats as in the Cougars.
Oh, okay. Well, then, you know what? Give me the Utahs, the Utes.
Oh, no. Okay,
Utes?
I'll go to the Wildcats if you want me to.
Give me
if
the
you-
Utes. Yeah, no,
I'm a
I'll
state.
take the Wildcats and the Peter Pokes. right, wrapping up the hour. Do the Royals, like you've said before, Mick, I love the line that baseball happens sometimes.
Happens all the time, man.
Does baseball happen tonight? Does baseball happen tonight?
Because this is going to be really close, right? And they're a game and a half up on the Twins. Now, two teams have to pass them, but those two teams are right there. The Twins are only 2.5 up on, or 1.5 up on the Tigers.
Mm-hmm. 3 up on the Tigers. It'd be nice if they were 4 up on the Tigers when the Tigers leave town.
Honestly, just win 1 out of every 3 games of the series you're playing, and you're in the playoffs.
Done and done. That's all you got to do. Does baseball happen tonight?
No, it's Scooble, man. This offense can't do. I mean,
baseball's gonna happen, boys.
When they get it on, they can't get them in.
Baseball's
when they get them on, they can't get them on
tonight.
They were Cones. Thanks, Mick. Program next.